So, like, this idea that criminals are like geniuses that made like the correct choice of the privacy, like the idea that because criminals apparently supposedly use Monero is like makes it better is like I've always argued like it's actually would be incredibly easy to cause like mass havoc in society. The reason things keep working is basically because smart people, who are the people who could really create havoc, realize like, hey, there are better ways to do like, oh yeah, I could rob a bank and like that would take a lot of effort. Or I could like go work a job and make a lot more money, right? And it wouldn't be as hard. I wouldn't incur so much risk, et cetera. And so I just think it's always like pretty stupid to do this idea of like pointing to criminals using it and be like, oh, this is like the peak smart people who are using it. And then also like you hear about the criminals using Monero, and it's not like it's like more like a low level drug dealer who is using Monero versus like, like what class of criminals, right? Like there are different types of criminals with different like intelligentsia
Right.
levels,
Well,
you
like
know?
the idea that the guy who is reselling Chinese drugs on the darknet market has done any sort of fundamental analysis of the cryptographic proving ability of any of the blockchains that he's using to privately send money. And he's like, I've selected this one for its cryptographic integrity. It's like, that's just obviously retarded, right? Like if I
And by
describe
the
that to any
way,
person,
yeah, and by the way, they also use a lot of Bitcoin, right? So that is
yeah.
to say, it's not like, again, I'm not, the tech side is very clear on this. If you don't believe me, just ask your favorite clanker, okay? Just be like, look at the tech, which one has stronger guarantees of complete privacy? And like one thing that the people, Monero people used to say back in the day is that, well, Zcash is not mandatory privacy. You don't have to use the privacy. And it's like, okay, sure, yeah, I don't have to use it. But if I do use it, then it's more private. Like it's as simple as that. And so it goes back to the Cypherpunk manifesto of like privacy is just choice. Like it's not some mandatory thing that you must abide by or you're completely outlawed by the fucking party, by the Bolsheviks, whatever. It's privacy is just choice. Like my thoughts are private. I can share some of them. I don't have to share all of them. Same with my social media pictures and my files and whatever it might be. Anyway, and then so that comes to my next point, which is I really hate this idea of marketing privacy as a thing for criminals, because privacy is not this niche edge thing that should only be available to like people doing sketchy shit. It should, privacy, first of all, needs to scale to the entire planet such that every person on Earth has the choice. They don't have to take it. It's up to you what you do with that choice, but you must have that choice, right? Like if I need, not all my conversations are private, but I want the option to have private conversations when I need.
But yes, welcome, Mert. We're happy to have you on the Plausibly Inhabitable Experience. Welcome back to our listeners. Sponsored by Polymarket, Zcash, Citizen X, and Passage
Passage
Press,
Press.
our beautiful sponsors.
Especially Zcash though. For
Especially
this episode.
Zcash on this episode. Yes. Mert,
Oh yeah.
you're many things, okay? You're an icon for beautiful bald men everywhere, all over the world. Look at that. Can we get some
Yes, sir.
angles? Can we get some left, right? The beautiful dome. Oh my God.
Soon.
Bro, today I found out, okay, so here's what I did. I took a selfie and I gave it to Claude and I said, help
Give me a full
me
head of hair.
Looksmaxx. All right. And then it's like, it's giving me some all sorts of fucking gas. And it's like, oh, you're already like handsome and shit. However, one thing that you might find useful is a matte moisturizer. Cause like when you have a bald head, it just fucking shines and reflects like a goddamn like sun. And I got one. And it does work. So when I'm in the sun, it doesn't fucking shine. So that's
I
for all the
thought
bald
I
guys
thought the
listening.
bald guys wanted the shiny head. I thought the shiny head was like a kind of a mog.
No,
or
but like
the
look at
shinier.
his head. It looks like the Apple Nano Glass texture, where it has that nice diffuse.
Yeah, I
This
thought
is like
you
extremely.
wanted a little bit of a shine. Is that not the meta? I thought the
No,
meta
dude,
was
no.
like
Look at his head. It obviously looks better than when they're completely shiny. Like study the results. You don't need to.
are there like
ask
different
him.
schools of thought here?
Look, it's like fashion. Sometimes it's in, sometimes it's out. I'll tell you one thing though. When you go on TV, they literally powder your fucking head so it doesn't shine and like distract the viewers.
Dude, that's the proof. That's
That
like
does
all the
make
proof
sense.
you could ever need. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That's like the pros. That's what the pros do. Whatever the pros do has to be right.
Dude, I think this is looksmaxxing alpha that I've never seen before.
This
Like I
is like
have
a very,
never heard
you do have a good shaped head. Like if you're bald, you need to have a good shaped head, and if you don't have a
that.
good
Yeah, I
shaped
was
head,
gonna
you're kind of
say you
fucked.
you have a very good skull shape, and there's a lot of people where it's like they're like, just shave your head, bro. Just do the Chad thing. You don't have to care about this, bro. It's gay if you care. And then they shave it off, and they have those like weird wrinkles on the back, and they have like a weird fin in the middle of their head. And you're like, man, it's not super Chad. Like you just look like a prehistoric animal.
The looks maxing stuff goes super crazy. I bet you could start to see like skull implants to give you like a Giga Chad skull shape the same way people are doing like jaw implants now. What a crazy world,
Oh,
man.
I never thought of that. That is a good point. But yeah, I mean, if
You
They
it's
do
could
the
write
that.
that
shape that
off for the
matters.
company, man. That's you know, that's like public appearances, right? That's a write off, dude.
Well, no,
No,
I'm Turkish, and my dad's a hairdresser, and so he's like every time I go back, he's like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, he's like, "My entire profession, you're making a mockery of me, and you're Turkish, and you're not getting a transplant."
Where there's the
Yeah.
old have you ever heard that old joke that's like there's two hairdressers, you know, one of them has a beautiful head of hair and the other's like half balding in a town. It's like which one do you go to? And you go to the one who's balding because the other one cuts his hair. Or you go to the one that's not, you know, that has like the beautiful head of
Oh
hair
yeah.
and isn't balding. Yeah. But yes, you're a bald icon. Okay, fantastic entrepreneur. We'll get into that. But you have recently become a massive proponent of Zcash. How did that happen? How did you end up getting into Zcash? What happened that made you think this is important? You know, tell us a little bit, maybe more on like the soft side. Like, why did you get interested in
we
it?
need what we actually are saying is we would like you to explain our sponsor to us because we like that they are private money and we love ZK proofs in theory, but
Yes.
we may be a little hairy on the details.
Sure. Let's see where to start. Well, okay. So this is from a time from when obviously I was all in on Solana. I still am all in on Solana. My company is the only exclusive provider on Solana for infrastructure trading and everything. One day I was at this, it's called the Salon, or let's say a mini conference where it's like bio people, physicists, and all sorts of different fields. And then from crypto, it's really just me and maybe two other guys. I'm not going to name them. And we're talking to like professors and talking about some interesting tech shit and philosophy and science. And it kind of just hit me that I don't have anything that interesting to talk about other than, yeah, we're basically putting markets on the internet, giving people access, and there's all sorts of cool things you can talk about in terms of what Solana enables and Hyperliquid and whatnot. But fundamentally, the aesthetics are a bit lacking, and I believe they, or at least they left me somewhat empty in that, okay, in 20 years after I spent all this effort, because I work literally 20 hours a day every day for at least the past 4 or 5 years, have absolutely no life. After that, what am I looking back on, right? And the ideological part in crypto, especially at this time, was getting much more institutionalized and the L2s and all these different things. And I was kind of just like, what the fuck are we doing here? And so you kind of survey the field and you think about the history and, you know, what are the things that are required for capitalism, civilizational stuff, and all this. And privacy is the one thing that seemed to me that was ideologically pure, extremely important for individuals versus organizations, let's say. So Orwell has this awesome essay called You and the Atomic Bomb. And it basically talks about how everything that's happened in the past in terms of like tyranny versus freedom is about the little guys having some sort of a defense or a weapon that's democratized. And so anyway, you put all that stuff together. I'm obviously skipping a few steps. And I was like, okay, after chatting with a few people, privacy is the one final frontier of crypto that we have not looked at. It was just kind of brushed aside because we were scared of the feds or whatnot. And around the same time, actually, a few guys from Zcash, Sean Bow, who's the co-founder, lead dev, and a few other folks came to me and asked me about their Zcash scaling plans. This is called Project Tachyon. We'll talk about that today. And I looked at it and I was like, oh shit, that actually makes a lot of sense. I didn't even think you could scale something like a Bitcoin similar architecture in any meaningful way. But if you have this plus privacy, then you have a very interesting system that nobody's actually looking at, and you just have to tell the story correctly and execute. And so from then on, I obviously kept doing research, kept playing with it myself, dove really deep. And then I started casually basically bull posting privacy and mentioning all sorts of different things around basically A/B testing on Twitter, so to speak. And that's kind of how I try to bulletproof my ideas or just see where I'm like super retarded and where there's something relatively interesting. And I liked the amount of like the types of people who engage with that type of stuff and the conversations that opened up. And so basically just started talking more and more and more about it. And then this was around maybe Zcash around $18 or something like this. It was outside the top 100. And now it's obviously doing much better. And what excites me about that is it's still outside the top 10. It's still below fucking Dogecoin and Tron and all these different things. And I think those have, I mean, Tron especially has some underrated merit as well. But like private Bitcoin, just encrypted money, actual private internet cryptographic money, right? Like people always talk about, like the industry is called crypto, but you're not actually using cryptography to do half the things you need to enable the things that we said we were going to do. And Zcash kind of just squares the circle on all of those. And so that's the short answer, I guess.
Yeah, I think all of us were kind of in this position where we got into crypto because of that, like the idea of like private money. And then gradually, as every cycle went on, it became more and more clear that it was like, okay, we've actually built the global financial panopticon. Like, actually, every TradFi institution really likes blockchains as ledgers and wants to adopt them. And it's like, wait a second, like,
Yeah, I
how
mean,
did this? And then eventually people start pushing that because they're like, it's like, oh, shill my bags, right? So you wind up shilling like institutional lack of privacy, uh, because that's your investment, and it just felt very bad. Like the industry was very confused, I think, for the last couple of cycles.
yeah, I mean, to give you like a small history, I mean, to your viewers, at least not you, but to give like a quick historical crash course here, crypto was started against the 2008 financial crisis by the Cypherpunks, right? Satoshi and some other folks. And by the way, one interesting tidbit here is that Satoshi actually cites Zuko in the first ever Bitcoin post. So like this goes back a long time. And so what do the Cypherpunks do? Well, the Cypherpunks literally entire um, operating system is we're going to use cryptography and privacy to give liberty back to the individual, right? We're going to write open source software, whether it's encryption in terms of network traffic or whatever tools to actually help these people on the internet have some sovereignty, right? So those are people who started Bitcoin and it says P2P cash. And the lack of privacy on Bitcoin is acknowledged on the white paper itself. And Satoshi basically says, well, you would just create a new address fundamentally whenever you're receiving. Obviously, nobody actually does that, right? And then guys like Hal Finney and even Satoshi actually, if you look at the early forums, are talking about, okay, we need to add privacy. You know, if you were able to add ZK systems to enable anonymity, a much better Bitcoin would be possible. This is quote for quote what he actually says on the forums. But obviously, given the technological limitations at that time, because you must remember, ZK is quite new tech.
We should
It
probably
certainly
explain
wasn't
ZK
around.
to people. I think we should explain, certainly if we're explaining the history of crypto, they don't know what ZK is.
Sure. ZK just stands for zero knowledge. And I'm not going to get too technical, but fundamentally, it just means you can prove something happened or something is true or something is false without revealing the contents of that something, right? For example, one example might be something like, I can prove to you that I'm over 18, just look at my head, right? But you don't need to see my ID, right? Now, obviously, you could be a bald kid, so it's not like the perfect example.
I think the
But like
perfect
it goes something
example
like that.
I've always heard conceptually, imagine you're playing Where's Waldo and you're really frustrated and you like go to the guy who made the book. You know, if you're familiar with Where Waldo, you got to find the little guy with a hat. And then you're like, he's not on this fucking page, you're fucking with me. And what the guy does is he takes the book and only the book behind a piece of cardboard and he cuts out a tiny hole that's only as big as Waldo. And then showing you that he only goes behind there with a book, he places the book against the hole such that you can only see Waldo through, but you don't have enough context of everything that's around him, so you can't figure out where he is, and so you still have to go back and be frustrated. And you don't know where he is, but you know that he's on the piece of paper, right? And so the idea is you can disclose some information without disclosing other information that you would normally need to disclose that information. You could say, hey, I'm over 18 without saying, oh, I am whatever age, right? Or you could say, oh, I'm over 6 feet tall, without saying, oh, I'm however exactly tall, right? Is kind of the broad idea of ZK.
Yeah.
My
Actually,
example, I guess, is from the KYC side, where it's like you can input your passport into your phone, and then if you need to serve proof of residency, like proof that you live in the US without giving them access to your passport, right? You now don't have to expose your identity, but you can prove that you are a citizen of this country and you are of this age and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Probably the easiest one is like, I can prove to you that I know how to enter like this locked store without giving me the keys. And the way is I just go inside and wave to you, right? Like,
Yep.
I can get in. I'm not going to give you the key though. Right. So anyway, that tech, ZK, was not, the mathematics behind it existed, but it wasn't really productionized in this context at that time, and not for a few years after. And so it was primarily a technological limitation, right? And so anyway, a few years after, Zcash came to be, and it's a fork of Bitcoin. It mimics the same tokenomics. It has a transparent side to it as well, but then you can shield your coins and make it private with zero knowledge proofs. So like the way I always tell the story is, at first we needed to prove that Bitcoin could even work, like this fucking random weird internet magical money. People would actually like buy it and sell it and hold it and use it for whatever, right? So that was number one, and that took a long time. And it went through all sorts of regulatory battles, and people used to say, well, it's just for criminals and money laundering, and so then Bitcoin people would say, no, it's actually completely transparent, as if it's like a desirable future. And by the way, if you go to the Bitcoin Twitter account today, it literally says trackable digital gold. So it's like core in that messaging. Okay. People kind of forget about this, but anyways, like when I'd watch like the Blacklist or something on TV and be like, oh, you send me Bitcoin, and it's like this terrorist, and I'm like, are you retarded? Like, you literally, that is the worst possible way to do crime, because it's completely trackable. Anyway, but that was the social kind of perception of
Yeah, I
how
think
crypto works.
I mean, you mentioned the Cypherpunk mailing list, and the Cypherpunk mailing list kind of says what you were saying, and you a little bit alluded to this when you mentioned the nuclear weapons stuff, right? Is like there's this idea that technology changed, right? Encryption technology, basically what the Cypherpunk list was really more than crypto. The Cypherpunk list started because there was this idea that, hey, encryption is going to become public, and the math behind encryption is very, very hard to censor. And so we'll have a pushback of power where the individual will become more powerful vis-a-vis the state, right? Because the individual can now send private communications. And then that became, hey, we can do money. But yeah, like you mentioned, Satoshi, Hal Finney, et cetera, all of them from the very beginning, they wanted, I think a lot of the early stuff even mentioned private internet money, not just internet money, or not just, money that was not controlled or emitted by the state, et cetera. But it specifically mentioned private. I think over time, there were regulatory constraints, and like you say, maybe some of the Bitcoin people played that cynically to make it more easy for the government to be like, oh yeah, we'll let this happen because it is trackable, and maybe that was good at the time or that was bad. That can kind of be discussed back and forth. But yeah, very much like it does follow the original vision of, hey, what are we actually trying to build beyond like Bitcoin as a specific asset that it is? Why is it that this is being created, right? And it's not just, I think, about having a hard cap or anything like that. I think a lot of it is about privacy and self-sovereignty of capital.
Yeah, certainly sovereignty. And then, like, okay, to summarize this, we had to make Bitcoin legitimate and get people interested in like believing that an alternative currency on the internet was possible. Okay, and then Vitalik came and said, well, actually, this is cool, but I want to make it programmable. So that's where Ethereum came from. And then Anatoly came and said, okay, that's fine, but you can't do much with it if it's not usable at scale. And so then the technological civilization tree, so to speak, went from Bitcoin to Ethereum to Solana. But then everybody kind of forgot about that last part. And then, by the way, all those other blockchains inherited that lack of privacy and that built-in transparency as a core thing. So obviously Solana is not private, which we're working on at Helius, and Ethereum is not private, and all these different things. I mean, Tornado Cash kind of tried within a limited kind of constraint there, and then went to jail for it. Anyway, so then you put all those things together and you're like, okay, this is the last kind of technological civilization tree branch that is super underdeveloped, but that has 1,000x left in terms of attention, impact, and technological and product development left in it. And so it feels like the obvious thing to work on if you're an entrepreneur or if you're a contrarian or you just like working on, or you just wanted to follow through on the original vision of crypto.
Yeah. And then so you kind of spoke to some people, you saw some stuff online. Do you think I think that there's like a very interesting culture around the Zcash, and it's kind of interesting how like, you have some other options. You have like Monero, there's some other stuff, some other people that are trying to do privacy. I think culturally it's very interesting to see the differences between these people. Where to me it's like just obviously clear that like the GigaChat option is Zcash. I've always thought this is kind of like and it's always funny when people say like, oh, this is like the intelligence community or whatever, and it's just like put one of these, like people are like, oh, dude, Zcash is like Mossad is in on Zcash, and it's like, not true, but like it's very funny. It's like that is just very giga chattable. Like it's just so giga chat quote tweetable. Like do you want your privacy coin to be the Mossad-backed one, or do you want it to not be the Mossad-backed one? It's like, dude, obviously the Mossad-backed one. Like which of these things does the giga chat say? And it's just always Zcash is always that one. I really like the culture, I think, around the people who do Zcash.
All right, I'll go for it. Yeah, the Mossad stuff is funny. I don't quite know. I mean, like, for example, it doesn't use. I'm not going to go into the tech here, but like the ZK used for Zcash's Orchard pool, which is the one everybody uses, does not require trusted setup, and it's open source code. And so, like, find me the backdoor, bro. Like, just look at the code, point your Fable, Mythos, GPT 5.6
Is that how you say it? Is it Mythos? This is another. We have a fairly consistent thing where we mispronounce all words because we've only read them on the internet.
Lukas or I, we're both like
What do you call
sufficiently
it?
internet kids.
I've been saying Mythos,
right? Surely.
But again, it's like I've only read it on the internet.
We've
Nobody
been wrong
in my
about
real life
immigrants,
has ever
though.
said this word to me. So
I mean, I'm an immigrant, so I wouldn't.
but you're also around people who might say this word in person, right? Like you are around other software developers who presumably use this.
I wouldn't count on software developers doing social sciences correctly. I have no idea. I'll just call it Claude's latest fucking thing. Anyway, point it at this project and let me know where you see the Jews, and then if you can show me proof, I will gladly. I will gladly.
Open source
whatever.
Israel, open source Jews, they're in there.
It's so funny to me. There's that one green text about like Japanese people like read all these like Nazi texts about Jewish people, and they were like, holy shit, this is based, like we gotta learn from these guys. And it's always so funny to me. So about the Fable thing, a little bit of elephant in the room. I think by the time this episode comes out, hopefully the news will be public and everything will be public. Do you want to give us a rundown on, there was not an exploit, but there was, to my understanding, some researchers pointed some version of the latest LM. So Fable, they had access to cybersecurity permissioned version of Fable through Anthropic, as well as kind of some world-class researchers. And they said, hey, look, there is a possibility that there was an exploit. I think there's a strong possibility, just given kind of price action, that it is very unlikely that this happened, from people who are super aware of these things and understand. Do you want to maybe give us, like, at first, the rundown on like what happened, and second, like what efforts are happening to validate that nothing did go wrong, secondly, and then thirdly, where that's at, right? If we have any conclusions or anything preliminary that's come out.
Sure. In terms of what happened, I would say, so Zcash has a few new core teams, especially as the project's gone bigger over the past year and a half. There's been an influx of, it already had really world-class cryptographers, but just more keep coming in. And so there's more than one core team. There's Valar, there's Tachyon, there's Shielded Labs, there's Zodal, there is Zcash Foundation. So like there's quite a few teams. And they basically all said like, look, okay, AI keeps getting more advanced and, there's all these hacks happening. Let's ramp up all resources to audit the hell out of our shit and bulletproof and whatever these things for when the AI systems do come. So they started hiring more and more security researchers, more auditors, more formal verifiers, all these different things. And one of those guys, who's one of the most knowledgeable people on Zcash on Earth, found a vulnerability, right? And then that vulnerability, in theory, would have allowed for you to mint Zcash in the Orchard pool. Now, there was all sorts of fake news around this, like, oh, you can just mint an infinite amount of Zcash. You actually can't do that. What would happen is that single Orchard pool would be insolvent. So a turnstile would be triggered, which guarantees that what went in cannot, or what went out cannot be more than what went in to keep supply integrity, right? And so that pool, assuming somebody just minted infinite amount and then took it out, would allow the attacker to kind of race out to the exits before honest people in that pool. And so that pool would be insolvent. Anyway, so that was patched, okay? And obviously there was a lot of misrepresentation. Some people didn't know the privacy trade-off versus verifiability trade-off for supply when it comes to these things. And we're fairly certain no exploit happened, just given if you look at the shielded pools numbers over time in terms of increase amounts, in terms of the price action, in terms of all the characteristics of like, okay, when you announce that it's actually fixed and that there's going to be a forced migration soon, you would presumably head for the exits before you never can do that again and all these different things. Anyway, so to counteract that, the Zcash core guys came up with a new shielded pool. This is called Ironwood, which is an incredible name for many reasons. And so what will happen is the pools from Orchard will go to Ironwood, which will ensure, since the turnstile won't trigger, this is the optimal case, that no exploit had happened. But much, much, much more important than this, Ironwood is formally verified, which means it's mathematically sound and proven to eliminate the same class of counterfeit bugs in the future, right? So you can mathematically prove that this cannot happen to risk the integrity of the supply going forward. And then, other folks used Mythos, or however the hell you call it, and the latest GPT models.
Well, it's Fable now,
things.
so we know how to pronounce Fable, hopefully.
Yes.
Right? We can all agree, yeah.
Fable, yeah. Okay, Fable. And Fable. And anyway, so those audits all show that, okay, there's no more exploits, there's no more vulnerabilities. This is mathematically proven to not have the same class of bugs. And as a bonus, they also added quantum recoverability in there. So you've heard about all the drama around Bitcoin's quantum readiness. Well, Zcash will be quantum recoverable in the Ironwood upgrade in 1 week, right? In early July, 28th, maybe something like this, or 18th. I don't remember, but
by the time this episode comes out, probably already quantum recoverable.
Yeah, and then finally, there's two other things there. They're also adding. They came up with this new node implementation called Zakura, which basically makes Zcash faster. It speeds up block times. It reduces sync time. So you finally have a performance version of Zcash. And the pool that's coming after that will be, it basically gets rid of a bunch of complicated math and makes it much simpler. And with that, you basically come to a place where Zcash is now mathematically and provably sound. It's much simpler to reason about and reduces a ton of different categories of security bugs. It's faster, it's completely quantum proof, it's performant, and it's unstoppable with private money.
So we're getting the whole package here. It's just everything. See, I was I don't know. I was just vibes based longing on that sell off down to like 270, 250 or whatever. We were out at dinner. There were a lot of people out there. I'm not going to say who, but there were a lot of people out there panicking over the Zcash price. And I was over there with
Real and true.
I don't know if you know Getty, but
Hmm.
he was we were both just like shipping longs like every time it went down because at a certain point it was just like this candle is too big and too red, right? Like it can't act, like this has to be a capitulation with, especially now because like I don't know if you noticed things have kind of changed since the ETFs. We no longer get like those flash wicks on majors where you get like a flash wick and then it'll like slam up and everybody gets liquidated and then you kind of like recover again. It's just this horrifying gradual descent. Like you just get ground down when they send stuff down. It's just a march of everything. And when you actually do see that liquidation wick, it's almost always just like you can kind of just buy now. Like this has to be the bottom, right? Because this isn't like it was just forced liquidation and you ran out of everyone who you ground down. I don't know. So that was my
Yeah.
thesis.
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm not good at the chart shit, but thank you, Mr. President, for the winning on all the crashes.
Thank you,
Uh,
Mr.
the
President.
like the way I think about it is very simple. It's very left curve. I look at the valuation, I look at what's coming, I look at the fundamentals and physics of it, and I'm like, how the hell is this thing at $7 billion? Like, how is this not even like a percent or like a meaningful share of Bitcoin or even Ethereum? Or even Solana. Like it's just nothing. It's just so small. And if you look at the types of people who are getting involved with it, they're the right types of people. Like the physics and the incentives work. It's super simple to meme. And like, what kind of man does not want privacy in his money? Like that's just kind of weird to me. Weird behavior. So I
Oh
hope
my
people want
God,
to
this
encrypt
is
their
such a
entire.
great
Yeah,
outflanking.
I was
Because
about to
normally people
say
are like,
this is like,
"Oh, you want
you like
privacy?
a
Like, what do you
public
like? What?"
ledger?
Yeah,
Public
people are like,
ledger, are you gay?
what kind of weird thing are you trying to do that you need private money for? But you're like, no, dude, you don't want privacy? Like, what are you, a total loser freak? Like, what is wrong that's such a great. I was also gonna say, like, you also did the brilliant, did you notice he did like he didn't even do the Curtis Yarvin thing? So the Curtis Yarvin approach to arguments is like you go like, well, I think this policy decision made in 2025 is like really bad. We should undo that. He goes, well, you see, it all started in 1776. That's the root of the entire problem you're discussing. He just like mogs you by going back 250 years,
He's like, yeah,
right?
the problem is not this stupid thing that happened a month ago. The problem is that you instituted a representative democracy instead of a monarchy. That's the problem.
Yeah. The problem is when we
Dude,
signed the Magna Carta in England, like, and so you kind of did this at the very beginning when you were like, yeah, so Satoshi actually credits Zuko in like the first like
We
Bitcoin
forgot to mention that
publication.
Zuko is Zcash guy though. So there's a lot of people listening who might not know that, but that
Yeah, they
is
might
the
not know who
relevant tie-in.
Zuko is. They should follow him on Twitter. Great guy, great poster.
uh,
Brilliant
Curtis
cryptographer.
does that a lot. Yeah, I was at a I forget what it was, some sort of an event with him. And then we're talking about Ataturk, who's like the founding father of Turkey. I'm like, I'm trying to tell him about him, and he's like, "Oh no, yeah, I know exactly." And he just tells me all these fucking facts that I was supposed to learn in school in Turkey, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't know he did that. What the fuck?" I
Yeah,
guess
I
I'm my
know,
Turkish.
dude. He just gets the historical high ground on you every time. But no, I agree. My thing on Zcash is very similar to you. Like I think privacy is going to be a great narrative. I think it's like the missing piece in a lot of ways for a lot of things. So I'm generally bullish privacy. I think it remains to be seen what trade-offs are going to happen in the regulatory space. I think something that is super hard pro privacy is always going to be a great selling point, and then you'll have maybe something a little bit more usable. And so Zcash kind of really fits that selling point of like more pure privacy. Um, and then I think for me it was very similar to you. Where it was like left curve. It was like we talk about this a lot on the podcast. Where like it's very hard to get things right all the time, but there is like a group of people who somehow are able to get everything wrong all the time. Like it's much harder, and you would think that these things would be equally difficult, but like they
Right,
clearly
but you can
empirically
go
are
on a hot
not.
streak where you're right about everything for like 6 months or like 8 months or something. But it's like you can't really, you're never hot forever, right? But you can be cold forever.
You can be
Like there are
wrong, Fred. There are
people.
people who are wrong on everything, right? And it's just like
Adam
all of those
Cochrane.
people who are bear posting Zcash, and this was like a year or 2 years ago, And so I was just like immediately became very, very interested in it because I was like, I have a couple like people that I monitor what they say, and I just immediately become interested in like the inverse of whatever they're
Yeah,
doing.
they're like our anti-indicators. It's like Twitter list, like
I much
it's like
prefer
Twitter
the
list alpha,
anti-indicator.
beacons of alpha, and then it's like people who have just been wrong about every single thing they've ever said.
Dude, and the thing is, I just much prefer like the anti-indicator to the pro-indicator because Lucas and I recently met like a very famous, like incredibly famous Twitter allocator. Okay, we won't say who it was, but we met super recently, like a week ago. Um, and this guy is just a total coin flipper. Like we start asking like why do you make the choices you make? And this person's just like, yeah, man, I just, like, what do I have to lose? Like, why not just go long? Like, what could I possibly lose if I just go turbo long, man? And I'm like, I'm just leaving and I'm fucking horrified after leaving this, like, meeting. And I'm like, just fucking horrified. It's like, dude, like, holy fuck, this is your investment criteria is like,
I was
yeah,
watching
sure,
him
I'll
have
just coin
like an
flip again.
existential crisis as he realized that it's like this person has 200 times my net worth. And
Yes,
he
dude,
achieved it.
I was
He
having like
achieved
an
it by being right
unironic
on 5 coin
crisis
flips, and
of
he
faith.
doesn't know that that's what happened. Like he thinks that
Yeah.
this was all values-based fundamental analysis.
Yeah, I thought this was
It's
like
like
some deep fucking secret sauce.
it's like the teal thing. I don't know if he says this on the Rogan show or some shit where he's like, it's like California and Saudi Arabia where it's like you can just get one thing right, which is tech, and then just completely everything else, and it just makes up for everything else. Or
It
like
doesn't matter.
Saudi
Yeah.
Arabia, it's like you just have the oil, and it's like you can make whatever wrong decision you want, but if you have the oil, it makes up for the rest. And so that,
Well,
yeah,
famously, Elon has the poker strategy where he'll just all in you and then rebuy, and then all in you and then rebuy, and then all in you again and rebuy. So I get, if you have enough coins, coin flipping is actually a legitimate strategy. But I think for most of us,
Or if you're
who
very lucky.
yeah, or if you're turbo. I always say this, like one of the big aspects of modernity is there's so much volatility in everything, like in markets and career and whatnot, that you kind of have to accept and like be at peace with the fact that people that just have like a higher risk appetite than you, like the main thing that drives how much money you make nowadays, I think over anything else is your risk appetite, almost for sure, right? In terms of like the career you're picking, if you're trading or your investment, etc., right? It's like how much risk are you willing to take on more than anything else, like more than if you're smart or you put in the hours, right? It's just like are you willing to trade memory stocks on earnings day? um, you know Dude, do you see 3% of every single adult in Korea got liquidated?
no way, is that a real stat?
Yes, it's a real statistic.
Dude, I would believe
3%
it. The
of the
Koreans
adult
are psychos.
population of South Korea got liquidated the other day, dude.
That's pretty impressive. Holy crap.
Just
And
such
this
an
is like a
ethically
retest
gambling
of the first
country.
level, right? Like this isn't like oh, we've experienced a big sell-off. It's like fuck, they've dumped us back 1 month, right? They've dumped
Yeah.
us back to May. Like
Dude, this country is insane. And like I always just think that like Korea is like ahead of us. Like in terms of like gender war, they're ahead of us. In terms of look maxing, they're like ahead of the West in generally, I think. They're just
oh,
ahead
we
on the
haven't
curve
talked
on
about the way that they're probably beating us on the gambling indicator too, huh?
yeah, they're beating us on gambling. Like it's just
Which
very
means that
clear
we're
that
going
everything is
there.
going to become gambling.
Which means that
dude.
that's what we're gonna do. Oh my
You're gonna
god.
have like your grandmother's gonna be like slamming, like calls on earnings day or something. It'll be crazy.
I
Yeah, it's
never, I went to Korea once, and I didn't see a single bald guy. And I think that was the only place I've ever been where there was just zero bald people. I was
No
the only, they were looking at me
Really?
out
representation.
like I'm some sort of fucking like triad member, or I don't know what fucking mafia they
was
have
was
there.
it good for you? Like were they like I like this
Do you think
bald
there's like a
guy, or were
novelty
they like
aspect?
he's an
Yeah, where it
alien,
was
we've got to
good.
stay away?
It's hard to say. I don't like being stared at too much, and they were just staring. But like, the person I was with at the time was like, "You look like a she." It was like a crazy mix. It was like you look like a gang member, and I was like, both of them at the same
Oh
time.
God,
Holy
that's
shit, that's
not
really bad.
good.
So that's
Not
what it
yeah,
is.
not amazing.
You could walk up to them because the Asians really they're not a huge fan of like being hairy. They like clean shaven everything, but like you've
Yeah.
sort of inverted it right? Like they have the up top and then the down. So you could walk up to them and say like, "You guys are all really hairy here." Like, is that a? And I think they'd probably be really offended.
Like the Harkonnens in Dune. That's
Yeah.
what you want. That's the ideal look.
I
Yeah.
wonder. So
Did you always do the
other
beard, or is that something that came about later?
I mean, I took it like, so one day I was already balding somewhat. I think maybe I was
One day
25 or
you
some
did
shit.
the "I'm shaving it off" meme.
Yeah, and I was watching the Transporter, maybe Jason Statham movie, right? And I
Yes,
looked at him.
total Giga
I
Chad.
was like, you know, this guy's pretty fucking good looking. Like maybe I could kind of get there, whatever. So I just went to the washroom and I just shaved it off. And at first I was like, oh god, this is horrible. I look like a fucking egg. I'm dying. I'm only 25. What is this? More existential crisis, all this stuff. Read some Nietzsche. And then the beard started coming in a bit more. And then I was like, actually, this is an okay look. Because people think
Yeah.
I'm much older than I am, which for a guy is actually relatively preferable.
Dude, I've always done that where if I shave off my stubble, I always have like a little bit of stubble. If I shave that off, I look like a miner straight up. It's like it's very bad. So I would always like for
Okay,
work reasons, I would always leave a little bit of
to
stubble.
be fair, listen, I must interrupt here. Saila, I mean, Sayla's not on camera right now. He won't be when we post the episode. But Sayla's like, I look like a miner. It's like Sayla's 1 year out of being a miner.
The age just keeps going. Like the age that Lucas keeps hinting that I am just goes down exponentially.
We're gradually
Pretty soon
approaching
I'm
the
going to be
point
like a
where it's
middle
like,
schooler.
this is the plausibly deniable podcast. The podcast where I talk to my 15-year-old friend in a totally normal
Surprisingly deep
about
voice.
sex and gender-related subjects.
Yeah.
Dear God.
Dude. We're going to be 1 year in and I'm going to be like 16 years old.
Okay,
But yeah,
here,
I'm also
I wanted to
curious.
go back to the thing you were saying about how you decided on you basically liked Zcash because you liked the privacy narrative, because you did like you zoomed out and you analyzed your aesthetic as like a person and you said this is a bad, like I don't have that edge, right? Like I don't have the privacy edge. Right? I don't have the like, I don't know. It's like the core belief thing, right? Like you were showing value propositions and you looked at it and said like, but this isn't like, it doesn't have heart, and added that back in. So this is like the funniest possible way that I've heard of anyone to get into another thing, right? Like people always say like, how do I pick a hobby, or like, how do I figure out what I'm interested in? And this might actually just be the best way. Like look at yourself and say, what do I feel that my character is lacking? If I were like on a sitcom or something like that, how am I like low spec? But the
It's
other,
more like
go for it.
it's more like if I were to whatever, if I didn't have a Russian girlfriend, then I could actually retire with the money I have, without having to replenish all of it all the time. What would I actually work on that I wouldn't get bored by, and that I would think is important enough to just warrant all types of brain power and effort, right? And it just felt to me like if you work on this thing, then by the time you're whatever dead at 70, 80, or 150, hopefully, with some of these peptides, then like how would I make sure that I didn't regret what I worked on? And this just felt like the obvious answer to me. And there's all sorts of different shit you can do, like robotics and whatever, but like, where do I actually have edge where I know what I'm talking about? Blockchains and crypto, math, the ideological aspects of like privacy and stuff. And so I was like, okay, this is just very obvious.
So I mean, presumably you looked at all of the available options, right? Like you're not saying it, but to me, I'm reading.
Oh yeah.
And maybe we can cut this out, I guess, if it becomes too hostile. But to me, what you're saying right now is you looked at all the available privacy options, and there's a reason that you are not shilling XMR right now, right? Like there's a reason you're not shilling Monero. There's a reason that you're not shilling any of the other privacy coins or chains or anything else. And that is
I can go into
presumably
why.
sort of, you can what?
I can go into why if you want.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
please.
mean, I'm because this is a big, the Zcash versus Monero thing is something that I've largely made as a vibes-based decision, and based on the fact that like I just like ZK, and the fact that I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they literally invent ZK?
They were the first productionized system of ZK. So yes, SNARK
Okay.
specifically. And in terms of, okay, I'm not gonna do the thing where I'm like just completely talking shit about them. So I'll try to do it in somewhat of a personal perspective here. So okay, there's the tech side, there's the ideological side, and there's all sorts of other factors. If you just look at the tech and nothing else but the tech, then I think it's an absolute no-brainer. Because here's how to think about it. Zcash completely encrypt all the information. There is zero information leakage, right? When let's say I sent you some shielded Zach on your wallet, whatever, you don't see from who to who, you don't see the amount, you see nothing, right? What Monero does with ring signatures is it obfuscates. So you know that game where you have like 3 red solo cups and then you have 1 ball and then you kind of shuffle them around, then you're like, okay, show me where the ball is.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how that system works. You just try to hide one real thing amongst, in Monero's case, 15 other things, but that 15 can actually be reduced to 6. So 6 other things. And you're just trying to hope that basically you obfuscated enough such that it can't be traced,
So you can
right?
basically always trace out a potentiality of transactions, right? Like you can
You can
also
always
always just
have
fractal
probability.
from. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And like you can see why this is a problem with AI and computers just getting much more advanced over time, because you will be able to kind of figure out these patterns over time. And there's like 3, 4, 5 tracing companies dedicated to doing just that, right? And so there's a lot of, I'm not going to say it's not private, it is private, but like the level of privacy guarantees that I'm getting, I want complete peace of mind. I don't
Yeah.
want probabilistic peace of mind. So from a tech perspective, it's, to me, it's not even close, right? But then there's other types of it. Like that was enough to actually just get me started. But there's other parts of it, right? Like when you're basically just saying things like, well, all the criminals use such and whatever. Well, okay, so to do the Yarvin thing, there's a historical reason for that. One is that Zcash, first of all, didn't even work for like the first like 5, 6 years, because ZK tech, again, extremely novel. It was extremely hard to work with.
It was very slow, wasn't it? Like the
Very, very
proving was
slow.
just mega slow. So it's like we can do this
Yes.
thing, but now your obfuscated transaction takes 9 years to load, and nobody cares.
Extremely slow. The integrations with like the developers and the all these different systems, super clunky. It was just a nightmare to work with. And similar to like how, for example, Tron has really good PMF in certain parts of the world, it's not that it's faster than Solana. It's that for that niche, it started at the right time, and then that kind of just kept going off with network effects. That's the reason why, right? It's not that, criminals somehow know technology or math better than mathematicians. It's that they did right timing and great go to market at that time. Okay, so that's the historical reason. But
I think
the
it's also like this idea that criminals are like geniuses that made like the correct choice of the privacy. Like the idea that because criminals apparently supposedly use Monero is like makes it better is like I've always argued like it's actually would be incredibly easy to cause like mass havoc in society. The reason things keep working is basically because smart people, who are the people who could really create havoc, realize like, hey, there are better ways to do like, oh yeah, I could rob a bank and like that would take a lot of effort. Or I could like go work a job and make a lot more money, right? And it wouldn't be as hard. I wouldn't incur so much risk, et cetera. And so I just think it's always like pretty stupid to do this idea of like pointing to criminals using it and be like, oh, this is like the peak smart people who are using it. And then also like you hear about the criminals using Monero, and it's not like it's like more like a low level drug dealer who is using Monero versus like like what class of criminals, right? Like there are different types of criminals with different like intelligentsia
Right.
levels,
Well,
you
like
know?
the idea that the guy who is reselling Chinese drugs on the darknet market has done any sort of fundamental analysis of the cryptographic proving ability of any of the blockchains that he's using to privately send money. And he's like, I've selected this one for its cryptographic integrity. It's like, that's just obviously retarded, right? Like if I
and by
describe
the
that to any
way,
person.
yeah, and by the way, they also use a lot of Bitcoin. right? So that is to say, it's not like, again, I'm not, the tech side is very clear on this. If you don't believe me, just ask your favorite clanker, okay? Just be like, look at the tech, which one has stronger guarantees of complete privacy? And like one thing that the people, Monero people used to say back in the day is that, well, Zcash is not mandatory privacy. You don't have to use the privacy. And it's like, okay, sure, yeah, I don't have to use it. But if I do use it, then it's more private. Like, it's as simple as that. And so it goes back to the Cypherpunk manifesto of like, privacy is just choice. Like, it's not some mandatory thing that you must abide by or you're completely outlawed by the fucking party, by the Bolsheviks, whatever. It's privacy is just choice. Like, my thoughts are private. I can share some of them. I don't have to share all of them. Same with my social media pictures and my files and whatever it might be. Anyway, and then so that comes to my next point, which is I really hate this idea of marketing privacy as a thing for criminals, because privacy is not this niche edge thing that should only be available to like people doing sketchy shit. It should, privacy, first of all, needs to scale to the entire planet such that every person on Earth has the choice. They don't have to take it. It's up to you what you do with that choice, but you must have that choice, right? Like, if I need, not all my conversations are private, but I want the option to have private conversations when I need, right? And
well, it's
so,
it's obviously totally fucked if any party has complete access to all of your transactions, because at some point you may do something important that can now get front run, right? Like, it's just a very basic, like, you've now turned your life into a prediction market if everyone can see everything that you do. And that's like, it's like, I don't even have to make like a moral case about this. It's just, it's financially non-viable for this to be how a market operates. Right? Like,
yeah,
we
and
don't
it's
even
also,
have this, right? Like, if I go and I invest in your company, you just, the average person cannot see this, right? Like, it's not like we post the cap table on Twitter. Like,
yeah,
We do
so
often
I mean,
post
that's
a cap
like
table on Twitter, but we choose to do it. We choose to do it for the clout.
well, the guy
okay? That's
gets
different.
kicked out of the cap table after he posts it, right? But like,
it's just like this thing where that's like a general crypto thing where crypto today is fundamentally worse than the existing system, because even the existing system gives you some privacy guarantees, like only your bank can see it, but not everybody on Earth. Like, I don't want when I pay for my Starbucks, whatever, my barista knowing, oh, this guy goes to Turkey a lot to get a bunch of hair transplant that keeps failing, right? Like get out of my business, okay?
yes,
Yeah.
And it's also a network effect. People miss this. People don't quite conceptualize it. But like, let me paint you a scenario. Okay, assume you use Bitcoin and you've practiced perfect OPSEC, whatever. You use a new wallet for all this shit, and you've been doing it for 10 years, whatever, and you've interacted with all these different people. Okay, you slip up once, just once, or you just interact with somebody who has slipped up. Then the people watching the third-party chain analysis of the world now know that entire transaction graph. Oh, like Mert transacts with this person because I know this is Mert now. Well, Mert has these friends. He has interacted with these people in the past. Let me make a few calls and understand which exchange that belongs to. And so you have now completely unmasked everything because it kept compounding over the years. And so you have exponentially new information rather than just this one new piece of information, right? So
well,
a
I can
network
also
effect
just
goes
kill
both ways.
everyone, right? And I can find the people who have the most money and
Dude,
then
I'm gonna be
kill them
honest,
most
I
directly.
transact
And
with
like,
people that have horrible objects, so I need this, man. I transact with people that cannot keep a secret for their fucking lives, okay? They can't keep anything, man. They can't keep a secret under like the lowest pressure ever from a FOID, okay? If the feds ever come after them, it's over, man. It's completely over.
It's also a great option against voids if you think you're gonna get divorced or something. Just encrypt some of that money. Like, good luck, good luck finding a sweetheart.
Official
think
we've
advice
said
of the
this
Possibly
before.
Deniable Experience podcast. commit divorce asset fraud.
man with Russian girlfriend / wife.
Dude, it's so epic to
comes
think
on.
of a guy getting divorced and like the cop is like pointing the gun at him like, we know you have Zcash. He's like, fucking kill me. I have the private key in my head. Like, kill me, you bastard. You won't do it. Like, it's so epic to be like, kill me. I don't care.
The other
Can you
thing
do
that,
so? You can't do too much smart contract stuff with Zcash, right?
Yeah, you
Is there an
can't do.
idea? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
You can't do smart contract stuff, and that's by design because
Yeah.
smart contracts expose you to all sorts of
There's a
different
trade-off
security risks.
between provability and that. I do think like doing DeFi with Zcash as an asset would be super, super compelling. Do you know if anyone is doing anything like this?
Well, yeah,
Not
I
on
am.
Zcash as an infrastructure layer, but using Zcash as an asset.
Yeah, I am. So okay, well, there's a few efforts on this. So we
I
obviously listed
legitimately did not. That
Zcash.
sounds like such a disgusting turbo shill. I legitimately did not know you were doing this.
Um, well, we listed
So just
Zcash as you might have seen. Now it's you can trade with it on Near, right? Like you can go from Zcash to any other chain. Like my favorite use case of Zcash is like if you shield it in your Zodal wallet, whatever, you can pay in any currency on any chain, and it's like this little Swiss bank account on the cloud that you can just nobody knows how much you have, but you can just pay on whatever chain in just one click. Anyway, so but once you enable that, like the bridging of it to other chains, you can then start to use it because the store value as credit for all sorts of other things, right? So you bridge it to, let's say, our new privacy protocol on Solana with Helius. Okay, so now you could, and we're gonna add light clients, by the way, meaning you can actually, um, without even bridging, you can just shield some funds on Zcash, generate a proof, and then you can take money against it, and so you can start doing DeFi with Zcash as your collateral, basically as your credit, on Solana, uh, and probably other chains, but Solana is the only one that matters to me. So
yeah.
Something kind of weird about the whole Zcash thesis, and I'm sure you've run into this now, but you were saying like, yeah, I like the privacy narrative. But the problem with that with normal people is, as we were saying before, normal people do not understand that Bitcoin isn't private, because there have been a ton of these videos about cryptocurrency where they have like some criminal gang that gets busted and they're like, they use the voice changer and they have some guy saying like, I'm sending you the encrypted Bitcoin on the dark net web transaction. The untraceable cryptocurrencies are in your wallet. And then, so normal people all just think that this shit is all completely private. And then you have to go back and explain that actually Bitcoin is more public than like a bank transaction is, and they often don't believe you. Like they think that you're some sort of like a cryptocurrency criminal trying to explain that actually no, actually you should let my crime be legal, right? Like they think that you're coping, and it's like, no, it's a public, like you can go to a block scanner and view every single transaction, and they're like, yeah, dude, I don't know. And then you show them the block scanner and they're like, is like a nice hosted CSV file, man? Like what does any of this prove? And you realize like there's actually no way to show a normal mom that this is all public.
yeah, that's a very good point. It's something I wanted to bring up actually, which is to say, yeah, you're absolutely correct. Oh, I sound like a fucking clod there. Oh, you're absolutely right. But you're correct in that that is a very valid, let's say, hole in like the how to think about this. And so, like the way I think about this is privacy is not the thing that's it's not the main thing. Privacy is kind of the wedge, but fundamentally, the thing it's a store of value that's internet native, right? It's just better Bitcoin. That's how I think of it. So, for example, like there's obviously like if you had the choice where you can have your regular Bitcoin or encrypted Bitcoin, why would you not choose the one where you can also encrypt it? Like, what are you actually losing there? It's just completely it makes no sense to just scam yourself out of that convenience of being able to shield your shit, right? Okay, there's another thing here, which is fungibility, right? With any sort of digital money, whether it's banking or crypto, if something has a history of a provenance attached to it, then you lose fungibility and the liquidity of that asset. Because, for example, you can say, well, this came from the Canadian trucker donations. I'm not going to allow you to do anything with that money. You're not allowed to off ramp it. So it's not truly, truly fungible in the same way that cash would be, right? Cash has no history attached. You just give it to somebody, they accept it. And so a truly internet native store of value must have privacy to enable the store of value component of it to begin with, right? And so the idea of Zcash is just freedom money, right? It's just money that's internet native, it's internet gold, and privacy is the one thing or one of the things that helps support that narrative, but it's not the entire narrative in and of itself, right?
I hadn't thought about the fungibility thing. because it is actually like a supply issue where you can now have, I mean, I don't know how many ether got burned during the period when they were saying, oh, this has been tornado cash, but it's like you effectively cannot off ramp those ether because there was a privacy tumbling protocol essentially where it would obfuscate who was sending the crypto to another person, and if you tried to off ramp that through like Coinbase or something, it would say, oh, this has
Tornado
been
Cash.
through the Tornado Cash router. You can't use this money. Like this money is banned. It's like if you had $100 bill and you go and you hand it to the cashier and the cashier goes, this was previously used in a criminal transaction. Get fucked. It doesn't work. And you're like, well,
Right.
I didn't, and there's no like this, it has this designation forever, right? Like once the block has that designation, it carries it for everything going forward. So if I tornado cash the money and then I give it to Saila and then Saila gives it to Mert, and then at some point someone
I would
tries to
never.
take it out
This
of the
is purely
system.
hypothetical.
Yes. But if this happens now, that person is like, well, but maybe they received this as like a contract payment for like a legitimate job they did, right? And they just find out that it's like, I've been given funny money, but the funny money looks the same as real money to everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like the way to frame this is you want to store a value asset to be low entropy. And what I mean by that is you want it to have no surprises, right? You just want high liquidity, low surprises, and a stable thing where you can transact over, right? It's akin to gold, where like the reason why people buy gold is because they know it's been around. They know it's not going to do anything drastically different, although now with institutionalization, it's trading kind of like a shitcoin in some regards. But in general, compared to other things, it's the lowest surprise asset you can think of, right? And so, and that's also where the quantum thing comes in, right? It's not that quantum is going to happen in 5 years or something, although it might. It's that I don't want to even think about it. A store of value is something you just put there and you just don't think about it anymore. You can transact with it, whatever. You have stability and security because it's low entropy. And so privacy coupled with quantum soundness ensures the lowest entropy thing for something that is supposed to be internet native money.
No, I mean, I think it's very, very well put. I think what'll be interesting and what I've kind of been, quote unquote, like waiting for, if you will, in some ways, is like I really want to see um, what ends up happening regulatorily, because I think right now it's like at a weird spot where it's kind of allowed, it's kind of not allowed. It's like not entirely clear whether you are allowed to hold this stuff or not really. Um, I don't know. I think that's like the one thing that really remains to be seen is whether on a regulatory basis we'll be allowed to use this, hold this, etc., or not.
I do think the US government might get a little weird with it. Like, I do think the US is going to start doing some Chinese things as more and more people attempt to move wealth out of the United States, given it's like you start talking about wealth taxes and shit like that. And even if it's like, it's probably not going to happen, you're scaring the shit out of everyone with capital, right? Like, you're
Yes.
scaring the living shit out of them. Like, you talk to anyone in California who has capital and they are saying, like, yes, I'm scared. Like, you've sufficiently scared me. Congratulations.
Well, so the all-in guys, David and Chamath, actually brought up that exact point. And they didn't explicitly mention Zcash, but they mentioned privacy coins. Dave was actually an investor in Zodal, which is the Zcash wallet. So like that is I like seeing the antidote to AOC is ZEC, which is to say like when AOC is president, you better have a Swiss bank or something offshore or something they just can't completely rip from you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little disturbing.
It does
Every
get a
now and then
little
I think
disturbing
about
how
this.
normal it like I think at some point in the very recent past it was like a very strange concept, this idea of like wealth seizures, particularly like in Europe and the US, etc. And I think at some point like it became somehow like very normal for the
Well, and there's a
government to
group
be
of people that
like,
are like pro wealth seizure on principle, right?
yes,
It's like
which is like
any
a
amount of
weird
wealth
recent
seizure.
development. This
Yeah.
wasn't a thing historically.
And it's also the group of people that is like aligned mostly with like political violence, which is just like, well, this just fucking blows, bro. Like, this is not good.
Yeah. It's less than ideal, right?
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
I
I
mean,
don't
I
know. I think
think,
almost everyone I know who's like very rich and not super stupid definitely feels like some kind of way about this and is like very rapidly reconsidering what a normal Western experience looks like ex post a world where, you know, it's like now, well, maybe you can't take these things for guaranteed that like a random freak won't show up at your house and like just kill you, take your shit, that like the government will support them taking your money. You know, it's a very strange world.
I mean, they have like the version of that in Canada where if somebody breaks into your house and you like kill them, you're going to jail. You
Dude,
can't
that's so
actually.
insane. That's always been so like that, and squatting laws are just like makes me feel like
well, and
I'm
then just the
losing it, dude.
UK, like the UK as a territory, and the fact that it's
Yeah,
like, if
the
you ever
UK
defend
is like a
yourself
as a
from a
place
random
that
person trying to
people
cut your head off
live.
with a machete, they
The
arrest
UK as
you
a place that
instead.
real people live is a little horrifying, man.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, how much, because I mean, you were in Dubai for a while, right? And
Yep.
Dubai's like, I mean, you can say many things about Dubai, but it is fairly normal in this respect, right? Like, you can just count on the fact that the government is going to respect the sovereignty of your wealth, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
it's like a thing where it's like a company that's trying to compete to win your business, so to speak, right? Because nobody's really born in Dubai.
yeah,
They just have to provide a service or an environment that people want to go to on their own. And so, I think they're also basically trying to be like somewhat of a Switzerland where their banking laws and banking security is like oriented around that. And so, they have it. Singapore has it. Switzerland obviously has it. Hopefully, Hong Kong used to have it, and then I'm not sure about that anymore. Um, but like, definitely need more of those in the world. I think Kazakhstan is like randomly also trying to do it more of it now, which I
I
wasn't
mean, it is like a
expecting.
random pivot that you can do as a country if you're like, like we need some more economic activity. There's not really a lot going on here. You can just say like, "Well, fuck you, less."
Yes.
Like we won't finances if you come to our place.
Yeah, and I think that's like completely like the low tax stuff. People are like, oh, you're not paying your fair share in taxes, whatever. It's like what is it going towards? What
Yeah,
am I exactly funding with those taxes? And in Canada, people will say something like, oh, it was free healthcare. Okay, but free healthcare is like dollar store healthcare. Like if you've actually done healthcare in Canada, uh, I went to the emergency room once and I waited like 12 hours. I was like, I'm gonna die soon. I mean, obviously I didn't have anything, but like, and then you go to like a Dubai or like Korea, even like you just go there. In Dubai, I didn't even pay anything. In Korea, I think I paid like $20 or something. Same day care, and there's no like 8 months wait for a specialist. And it's like,
yeah.
okay, so
Taiwan had
clearly they can do
the
this.
best healthcare system of any place that I have ever been to for just like public people. Like if someone randomly visited me in Taiwan and they had some sort of a health problem, then they would go in and they would be seen within like 25 minutes. And it was so bizarre. The first time I went, they give you like a little number. Like, you know how the DMV, you come in and you pull out the number and it says like 4,621, right? And then you're like, "Oh god, it's one of these things. I'm fucking never going to get called. Like I'm going to be waiting here until they close." But then in Taiwan, you get called in 25 minutes and then they go in and they perform whatever procedure. Like, I know one guy who had like a 2-hour procedure that required a bunch of like numbing agents and anesthetics, and they brought him between two doctors during this period, and he comes out and he gets charged $26 USD. Uh, and this is like, he has no insurance, he doesn't go here, and you're just like, this
I would
this
feel
would
like there
have
was some
been.
kind of scam if that happened, man. I'm gonna be honest.
Well,
Like too good to
I
be
think the
true,
government
right?
just subsidizes this to some degree, and I think also it's like, without the collusion between insurance providers and pharma companies and hospitals, you just don't have this weird like looping price hike where they're just like billing each other massively escalating invoices for
It
things
is
that
super
just don't
cool that we
cost
give
that
like
much money.
YC companies shit for doing like revenue loops, but then like the entire healthcare system in the United States does revenue loops basically, but like with other people's money.
Yes,
Like,
or with imaginary
if
money
you
in many
if you
cases.
think about like what exactly is happening with the healthcare thing, it's like you need to have insurance. Well, why do you need to have insurance? Because healthcare is expensive. Okay, why don't we make healthcare cheap? Well, almost everyone has insurance, so it's totally fine because the insurance just takes care of it. And it's like, holy shit, dude, it's over. Um, that's just not a thing that's ever going to get better. The only policy I've ever felt like was more insane than the American healthcare system de facto, which is not like necessarily one policy, but a collection of policies more like, um, is the, have you ever heard of the triple lock in the UK, Mert?
No.
So the triple lock is the pensions have to increase by the greater of these three things. I think it's like either 2% every year, or inflation, or the cost of living. And it's like the greater of these three things. It's just like the most insane thing. It's like, how could we design a pension system that could never ever be stable? And it's just the UK's pension. And I'm sure there's like a ton of fraud and, you know,
Doesn't
whatever.
France have something where you have to like allocate an insane amount towards pension of other people or something?
Dude, all of these pension systems are gonna fail, dude. We had an episode with Alex Recuzzo. I don't know if you've ever met him, but Alex, one of the great sponsors
Citizen
of the
X or
pod,
something?
Yep.
he
Yeah.
runs Citizen X. Dude, like there are gonna be wealth seizures in Europe very soon. Like it just the math doesn't make sense otherwise. Like it's these politicians either need to choose between I screw over every single pensioner and every single person who is inside of the system receiving money from the government, and I immediately lose the election, or I keep increasing the pension somehow, and like I need to get that money somewhere, and it's like where can I get it? European business is already super destroyed, right? No one who wants to start like a super innovative business, or no one who can choose the jurisdiction where they start their business is like, yeah, I really want to start my business in Europe. That's just not a thing that happens, for better or worse, right?
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
they're
by
gonna
the
have to
way, I don't know if
go.
you saw the UK age verification thing, where they passed like these two things. They didn't pass all of them yet, but to like combat child pornography, whatever. Now, device manufacturers themselves have to basically add spyware such that they scan every piece of content on the phone, and the only way to get around it is to do KYC to prove you're older than 18, and that's on top of another mandatory scanning by the apps themselves. So there's like nested KYCs just to be able to use your device. And that's also, I don't know if you saw the chat control also passed in Europe now, chat control 1, which is to say now these companies will start scanning all your shit. The chat control 1 isn't as bad, but it paves the way for chat control 2, which allows them to basically scan encrypted messages, which is kind of just insane. Here's the way they passed it. The first like 4 or 5 times it was proposed, it didn't get enough support in the for votes against the against votes, and so it didn't pass. And so they evoked a technicality such that now it required a majority to vote against it for it to not pass. But then they held a vote for when everybody went on vacation, so there wasn't enough people to vote against it. And so now it actually passed, and that's the EU, by the way. And so it's basically just keep fucking playing around with the voting things until it passes whatever you want.
So
And
Europe is
so
just done.
the trajectory isn't great. We'll see what happens, but
The spin master, dude. He's like, you know,
The probabilistic outcome.
you're getting
right?
it much
Like,
cheaper than you were getting. You know, if this was a token, you're buying it a lot cheaper than you were buying it a few years ago, dude. I love whenever I open Twitter and like I've like talked about real estate, and so my phone's listened to me, and like it thinks that I want to buy real estate or something, and like I immediately start seeing like. And you look at real estate anywhere in the world, and it's like Miami, $1 trillion for an apartment in South Beach or Brickell. It's like California, 1% of the equity of all your children for all times in the future for like a normal 2-story home in like the Mission.
well,
And
and
then
it's
it's like,
it's just for
and then
rent.
it's like
It's like for
Italy.
rent in a hacker house. Like you don't even get the
Yes,
home. You don't
yes.
even
And
own
then
it.
it's just, Dude, and then Italy is like, please, we'll give you this house. Please move to our country, please. I'm fucking begging you. And you just see the house, and it has like a fucking like private vineyard, like pool, like dock, like it's 30 minutes away from like the most beautiful little town you've seen ever. All the like women in the surrounding areas are fantastically beautiful. It's just like the trad wife in the wheat fields, like with the shimmering wheat fields of wind. And then it's like asking price, like please, like it doesn't even say
Dude, I
price,
know
it's just
someone who
please,
literally
I'm
bought a
begging you.
mountainside vineyard, or maybe not. It's some sort of weird farming thing in Italy that is like overlooking a massive lake. There's like a zip line. It's like beautiful, and it was like 120K. It's like actually like
Damn.
120K. And
And
I
what
was
is
Dude,
seeing this,
it's
and I was like, how
ridiculous,
can
man.
this exist? And then I started looking at European laws, and I'm like, oh, it's like because the type of person that has wealth that they need to protect actually can't buy this home. Like you can only
Yeah,
buy this
you
home if you
cannot
have
buy it.
no
Yeah.
other assets. Like,
Well, that's why everyone does. We were talking about Saint Tropez and Mert. You were saying it's not all it's cracked out to be. A big part of the reason why these rich people do the circuit every year is actually because they don't
yep.
want to stay over a certain amount of days anywhere, and so they want to do 180 days on the yacht. And so you're trying to like spend the day somewhere and then go to your yacht and then move your yacht somewhere else so your yacht isn't parked somewhere for too long and then blah 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 and you keep cycling that forever basically.
Like at a certain tier
Um,
of wealth, your entire lifestyle becomes oriented around
Not
hopping
paying $1 trillion
localities to
in
evade
taxes.
taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, I think a lot of these
Zcash.
European families are mostly inherited wealth and like there is not a lot of production of wealth at this point. Just
Yeah,
because the businesses have
that's
been
especially
choked
true in
out.
Europe. Yeah.
Right? The business has been choked out, and so it's basically like a family office that has a ton of money, and they're great people, but they're not. Oftentimes, for no fault of their own, it's not like super. It's not like there's some fantastic business behind this that is super productive, and so it's more about taking care of what you have than making more money.
And
Um,
speaking of Zcash again here, you are building privacy on Solana. I want to talk a little bit about what Mert is actually doing here, right? You have
Yeah, well, I wanted to actually go, if you don't mind, like tell us how you got into crypto, how you started your company, a little. I think you've had a super interesting career and stuff, and you're very prolific. And so maybe like the quick version, not, I'm sure you've done like a super deep dive somewhere else.
Sure.
But how do you get into crypto? Why do you decide to start a company? Tell us a little bit about, and then maybe we can reach what you're doing today on Solana.
Sure. Yeah. So I graduated in math and signals engineering. I worked at BVM, if you guys remember BlackBerry, and on the cloud infra there. Yeah. So and then I worked with three of the big five banks in Canada. That was pretty disgusting in terms of just how antiquated those systems are. Worked at a few startups and then ended up at Coinbase. Coinbase, I was like the only Solana bull. And then I finally convinced them to do a Solana project, and then we were doing it. And then I was like, holy shit, none of the tools that I need for this actually exist. And so I was going to build it in-house at Coinbase. And then I was like, actually, I should probably just start a company and do this and then sell to them later. Clearly, there's a big market gap here. And I was also building stuff on Solana on my own time anyway. So quick Coinbase before the equity vested, by the way, when we're talking about risk tolerance. So basically I had literally zero money and student debt as well. And then got my actually roommates from university from a decade ago. We started Helius. We started building tool. Like one thing that I really hated for crypto, at least like 4 years ago, I mean, still today, but especially 4 years ago, was that there was just no apps. Like it was just all circular, like farming games. And so I was like, okay, like probably one of the reasons this is the case is because it's just impossible to build in crypto. Like it's just so difficult. And so I was like, we'll just build a tool so that process is easier. And so we'll at least probabilistically affect the outcome of there being more apps with PMF in crypto. So started building that, got a bunch of customers, and just kept building more products for developers over time. And then now we're doing quite well. And then skip all the stuff in the middle. Let's say obviously like Solana getting destroyed by FTX and all those different things and the EVML2 stuff. At some point, I took to Twitter to basically call people retarded for ruling out Solana, and then I started going viral for that. Um, and then, okay, so with the privacy thing, it's really everything that we talked about today. Well, like fundamentally, if you have a blockchain and the blockchain doesn't have privacy, then not only is it like the ideologically wrong thing, but it also just doesn't work for finance. Like you just, what's super ironic is that institutions themselves won't use blockchains unless the blockchains have privacy
Yes,
for
yes,
them.
this is the thing. This is, and I always say this to people, and they always think that I'm coping. But when I'm like, institutions actually love like blockchain ledger technology because it makes compliance super easy, right? Like it's actually way better than having a bunch of random accounts that random employees can change without signing off properly. But they're not going to do this on the Ethereum blockchain where I am competing with them for monkey pictures and gas races and all of this other shit, and everyone can see it, right? Because of one, it's a compliance banned. You cannot go and just show everyone all of your clients' transactions, like super illegal. But two, it just makes your life really hard as a financial actor, right? So yeah, they all love blockchains and they all use them internally as like a privately permissioned chain.
Exactly. And so like the irony here is that, we earlier said like maybe regular people don't care about privacy, but it turns out institutions actually care a lot and they have to care. And so with Solana, and then there's all sorts of other things. Like I don't want to telegraph all my fucking trades. I don't want to do payments on a completely transparent thing. And so we bought a team called Light Protocol, which pioneered ZK and Solana, and we're building the canonical privacy layer for Solana, where you'll be able to do anything that you do on Solana today, but privately. And so that will be out probably 2 weeks after this podcast comes out. So if you're on Solana or if you're in crypto in general and you want the best blockchain in terms of actually working at scale and you probably need privacy, just hit me up.
So what separates...
Hashtag grant.
Dude, I love
this has been a paid promotion
or like paid partnership. This is not a paid partnership, but we will make Mert buy us a couple beers at some point.
Hell yeah.
Well, okay. What is the difference between privacy on Solana with ZK versus Zcash? Like you were talking about like the level of like the degree to which you can obfuscate, whether you have like total obscurity versus some of it's exposed. Can you keep everything totally obscured on Solana?
No, you can't. So there are trade-offs. So Zcash is just, so for example, we know you mentioned Tornado Cash a few times. Tornado Cash just obfuscated, like it was a mixer, meaning you put some money in and then later you can withdraw from a different address. That's it. You can't even do transactions within that pool, right? Like once you deposit money in, you can't then swap and all. So it's not like a programmable privacy mixer thing. And just for that, they went to jail. They got convicted for conspiracy for money transmission without a license. And then they're also facing a retrial for money laundering and sanctions evasion, which adds up to, if you combine those, about 55 years in prison, which is pretty crazy.
For the record, for everyone who is unfamiliar with this, they actually charged the software developers with this, right? So like people who were hired by a company to build software and did as their legally registered employer instructed them to, are now like facing, or they were facing, I believe, like federal prison charges. Which is just, which is one of the most insane things in the entire universe, actually. Like that one is just,
it is pretty insane.
Holy fuck, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like one of the things that you can't do, for example, is this gets a little nuanced, but with Solana privacy, like with our new thing, to begin with, we can't actually encrypt the recipient and the sender. So the tokens and the balances and the amounts can be encrypted and hidden. But if you break the transaction traceability graph, there's a very good chance you're going to be, you have the feds coming after you, which is a problem because it's one team developing the protocol, right? It's Helius building the privacy protocol. And it's not like a thing where there's like statute of limitations where like they sue the company. No, they come after CEO personally and hold them criminally liable. So that's a problem. Now, the thing with Zcash is you can't do that to Zcash, right? You can't just stop Zcash by arresting the CEO of it because it doesn't have one. It's this very bottoms up decentralized thing. So with Solana, that's obviously a difference. Another difference is the network effect, right? Privacy is a network effect in that, for example, if you just go to Zcash and you shield one ZEC, or let's say 69.69 ZEC, and then you withdraw that exact amount, you can see who did that, assuming that there's nobody else using the protocol, right? And so to get privacy, it needs to be used by all sorts of different people. It needs to have a lot of money in it, such that your funds aren't like just sticking out as
Yeah.
like the big bird in that board.
Like, there's no
meeting,
such thing
you
as
know
a
what I mean?
privacy protocol that has one user, right?
Exactly.
Like, it's
And so Solana will obviously have a different anonymity set compared to something like Zcash, right? And then there's all sorts of things like, again, what we talked about in terms of privacy not being the main thing for Zcash. The main thing is the store of value. The privacy just enables that. But with Helios privacy, it's just tokens and assets that already exist, and you want to play with those, right? There's no SOV, there's no currency aspect in terms of like, there's no Bitcoin in it. I mean, you can encrypt Bitcoin in it, obviously. And so that's another one. And then there's also like nuanced things, like, for example, privacy is technically the absence of something. So privacy is the absence of information leaks, right? And so to have something optimized for that, you have to design it from the bottom up in terms of like networking level stuff, validator level stuff, social cohesion, right? Where on Solana, that's not the case. Like, Solana is not a privacy blockchain. We're just adding privacy to it. But fundamentally, there's different leaks that can happen depending on how serious of a use case we're talking about here, right? For example, there used to be the OFAC sanctions for ternary cash on Ethereum, which affected which block builders would include which transactions, right? On Zcash, that's not going to happen because it is a privacy chain. On Solana, though, remains to be seen. I'm guessing it won't be because it would be really stupid to do that on a confidential protocol as opposed to a fully anonymous protocol. But so that's a few of the differences.
okay. So basically, it is as private as Solana's network can support, and Solana does have the advantage of probably a lot more users and a lot higher transaction volume that are pooling against this to obscure you.
The ideal use case is like if you're like a neobank and you want to build on Solana because it has all the users and all sorts of liquidity for USDC or something. Okay, then that makes sense because you can just it can give you the requirements you would expect from TradFi in terms of privacy, as well as the crypto guarantees.
Okay.
But like, if you're looking to replace your Swiss bank, Zcash is like the low entropy thing with no surprises. It's just completely there, but it's also the asset that you're investing in, right? With Helios privacy, there's no asset to invest in.
Will there be an asset to invest in? I assume no.
Hmm.
Right?
Well, who
Dude,
knows?
I think everyone who does a token hates it, but maybe you could finally do it. Maybe Mert could be the one.
Mert is kind of the god of tokens in many ways, because you've made two big calls on these things and they're both up like a 20x as very serious coins, right? Like, you made two calls on things that at the time were basically irrelevant investments if you were to go and look at all of the assets in cryptocurrency, right? Like, Solana was pretty dead when you decided to all in that one, and Zcash was pretty dead. Not maybe dead in terms of development, but definitely dead in terms of its market cap relative to all of the other assets in the industry.
Yeah, it's what I like. In TradFi, we call this hostile takeovers or like corporate raiders, where you buy like a distressed asset and you basically restructure it such that it succeeds and it actually makes sense. It's interesting. Nobody thinks of this in crypto, but that's actually, you can do that in crypto at scale for anything without permission, right? You could just buy the token of something that you think is super undervalued, and then you can actually go and do the work to help it succeed. Like, you can actually fix the physics of it, and then the project starts working again. And it's like, why wouldn't you do that, right? Like otherwise, like I don't like it when somebody's just like buying the token and they're just like, Dev, do something. And it's like, okay, sure, that's one way to do it. But if you're super serious, then you can also do that thing. I mean, with ChatGPT,
You
you're a dev too.
have Claude Fable that you can use now. You're the dev, right? Like you're
Dude,
the
Fable
dev.
does sound so good. I'm gonna be
Fable
honest.
sounds better than Fable. Fable was a shitty name.
Fable
Mythos,
clears Fable so hard, dude. It's
dude,
not even
Mythos
close.
was an epic oriful name, and then they came out with Fable, and it's like, dude, you resorted. This is now your children's bedtime stories. Like that's your name. Like this is just not epic anymore.
Dude, they are gonna run out of like insane aura names pretty soon, right? Like they keep jacking up the amount of aura they're putting into these names.
Well,
Um,
Helius is an example of another one of those names that's like it's a good name and it's not a word, right? But these are very hard to come up with. You would think that there is basically an unlimited number of these, and I'm sure technically there are, but there's a very limited number of them that you can say and be like, yeah, I work at this company, and it doesn't sound like it's a suicidal guy, right? Who's like, this is the worst name ever, and I work at an unserious thing that makes me feel bad about myself.
Yeah, Helios is I deliberately misspelled Helios so that I would dominate the SEO. And that's basically what ended up happening. I love just randomly
do you
making up
believe in
words.
the Peter Thiel, like the name is super giga turbo important? If you fuck up the name, you might
Yes.
as well run back the whole company.
I I think he's directionally correct. The problem is there's always exceptions to these things. So like there's just a bunch of random retarded names in my view. But like the good company, and also I feel like, okay, here's the other thing. The company kind of also makes the name itself, right? Like Apple, for example, like if you just started that and you're in the the meeting where they name the company Apple, everybody's like, what do you mean it's called Apple? Like the fruit? But then you keep building like the best products and shit, and everybody's like, oh, Apple, right? Like so you kind of like distill
Dude, everyone says
the
that, but I
aura
feel
into
like
the
Apple
name.
was I think Apple's like an oriful name, right? Because you have like the story of creation, Adam and Eve, like dude, I don't know. People
Oh, I
always
never
say
thought of
this
that
about
actually.
Apple, but I think Apple was actually like a pretty oriful name in many ways if you think about it a little. Um,
Okay, I think
I do think
WhatsApp is a
there's
ridiculous name.
WhatsApp is
Yeah,
the
it
one I always
sucks.
bring up. WhatsApp is always one where like you would never name this the thing, but it has become such a massive product that it just doesn't matter now, right?
I
It's
think
like
WhatsApp actually is like 50% market saturation it would have achieved with any better name. Like every time I
I
heard
don't
someone
think it
I
mattered
had
because I
dude,
think
no,
it's
it mattered,
mostly
man.
popular
I can tell you
outside
it
of the
mattered because the
US.
first 20 times somebody said, "Yeah, I'll talk to you on WhatsApp." I was like, "Yeah, never mind, man. I don't need to talk to you that bad." Like I actually was like, "This is such a shitty name and you are like it just is so third world coded, man." Like it sounds so fucking ghetto that I think basically everyone in a relevant country hears the name and they're just like,
Yeah, it's a ridiculous name. I also try to not use it as much as possible. The name scratches me out a little bit.
it's yeah, it's I mean Telegram is a much sketchier app and user interface, but it is a much better name and so I even prefer that. But I do think that I mean you can obviously work around the name and the proof against this is just like the SP 500. Like I'm looking at the index right now and it's just like Oniak Inc., Comfort Systems, TE Connectivity, Targa Resources Corporation. Like these are just bad names.
It's a B2B versus B2C thing. Like if you're B2B, the name doesn't matter as much because you're just selling to a bunch of random suits anyway.
Yeah.
But for consumer, it has to be a good name.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably
that
a
is
much
kind of
better
true.
distinction.
It is true that like it's very different whether we're talking about consumer or non-consumer actually.
Consolidated Edison Inc. Like these are genuinely just like okay AI like Mad Lib's three random words, right? Like really
Dude, AI
bad
is so
stuff.
bad at naming. I was just naming
It's
a
not
new
good,
product
dude.
that we're making, and it took me like 5 days, and I was just swearing. I was like, "You stupid fuck! Like, why do you exist?" I started crashing out on it. It was so bad at naming.
You have to do like
Ugh.
a like slash goal generate me 5 million names for my firstborn son, right? And then it's like eventually one of them will be good. Right? So Mert, how I assume that you use AI for a bunch of the development stuff that you do, and I assume that a bunch of the people that you hire also use AI for this stuff. Where do you stand on the grand spectrum of it's the singularity, bro, like it's over, versus like this is going to increase demand for software engineers?
I don't think it's singularity. I think so. I was pretty like I was using. I actually not mandate, but I basically kindly or aggressively recommend people use AI like the day it came out. Literally the day it came out. In like just the Chat GPT interface. I was like, you guys should just use this to like bulletproof your ideas, whatever. So like we were super early into it. And then obviously it evolved quite a bit since then. It's just I view it as a tool. I think it's super good at doing deterministic tasks and certain other things in terms of like security and just very software oriented things. I don't think like the way that like Dario went about like it's gonna replace all your jobs. I think that was super dumb. I think one of the things people don't understand is that most things in life are relative and it's like market-based competition, which is to say if everybody has the same thing, then your edge is not that thing, obviously, right? And so you need to figure out other ways. And generally speaking, that is going to be intrinsic to that person, right? Like how you compete is going to be intrinsic to you and not the tool because everybody has the same tool. Like there is a temporary arbitrage, of course, in which like
Yeah, we're in
let's
which people
say
just
that
don't know that it works, right? And then you
yeah,
can be the guy who knows that it works and you have an edge just because your mom doesn't.
exactly. Or like, Trump disallows Fable from being available anywhere outside the US, right? And so like there's arbitrages, and arbitrage is a good way of making money and succeed and all this stuff. But if you think about it in the limit, I don't think it's going to be this thing that just like displaces old jobs and whatever. I think again, like for example, it's completely awful at writing. So like there's very clear shortcomings that it has, but it's also very good at like math-based things, right? It's not an accident that a math-based system is good at math. And so I don't think about it too much. I just think of it as a tool. We'll use it when it makes sense. Won't use it. Like I have another thing where I'm like, if you're writing something to me, I better not be able to know that it's AI. Because if you have just copy and pasted your AI fucking prompt or output to me, first of all, you are an NPC because if your thoughts can be completely replicated by a fucking set of matrices, then why do I need you? I can just ask the chat. I can just ask the AI myself. Second, you clearly have no original thoughts because and you don't trust yourself, right? If you actually trust your own written word and your thoughts, then you would just write to me directly, right? And so maybe I'm a little too opinionated on that one, but like, there's actually certain things where I like don't
Well,
want
I
people
think
to
this
use
is one of
it.
those ones where you get more opinionated on that specific point as you deal with more and more of these people. Because, like, I mean, in my experience with this stuff, right, is someone sends you some AI generated message and you're like, why can you just like not send me AI slop? Like, just write the message. And they're like, dude, I didn't generate this with AI. And you're like, fuck you, dude. Like, this is just obvious GPT slop. Like, I know GPT slop when I read this shit. And then they just deny it over and over. And eventually you become extremely hostile towards this group of people because they just keep doubling down on the fact that they're not using AI to write this shit. And you're like, well, you're okay. You're just dishonest as a class of people also. So fuck you, right? Like, I don't want to, I want to have very
Yeah.
hard, compromising rules against this thing that you're doing to me.
I'll come out here with a weird take. I'm kind of a believer of like, and I think Mert kind of hinted at this, but like, if it's good enough that I'm falling for it, then it's fine, man. Whatever.
Right, but that's why the rule is if I can tell, right? Like if I
Yeah.
can't tell,
Yes.
then it's like I guess.
If I can't
whatever.
tell, keep doing it. Yeah. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can't tell, it's fine, man. Like whatever.
This is like us 6 months before all AI can fool all of us. Like,
Well, I
Yeah.
think the
For
thing is it's gonna get there. I think there's ways of using it really effectively without like it's this massive crutch which you cannot use for anywhere, like ever. Like you are totally 0% productive without it. But we'll see.
Well, it made things like Rust much easier, right? Like, I
It's
think
great
it's
for
just
coding. I mean, like fundamentally, programming is talking to a computer in the language it understands, right? And you have to get very specific, which is why in Rust you have all these types, and it gets pretty unfriendly. But like all AI does is it makes sure that the language itself is translated correctly, right? I mean, it's called a large language model for a reason. And so now you can just program computers by just talking to them. And that alone is super important. And, all this random shit about how it'll change everything is true, I think. But I don't know about the singularity. I don't buy that.
I really like the
Why
debates though
exactly do
that
you not
everyone
buy
has.
it?
I guess just I've read too much David Deutsch basically. Where like the model of computation that LLMs use is fundamentally different than how a human and like okay, so I read another book
Yeah,
on
it's
like
not
what is
deterministic,
intelligence.
right?
Yeah. And so you might say something like, well, for example, can submarines swim? And it's like kind of a meaningless question because they just do the job regardless. And so maybe it doesn't even matter on the way it achieves it. Um, but I think like fundamentally it seems unlikely to me that you can arrive at what makes a human human by mere accident and just forcing a few matrix multiplications at scale. I think you'll be able to mimic certain things very, very, very well and surpass humans for sure. Um, but I just like singularity to me implies like just something where like it gets out of control, right? Like where it's like it's this own like new species that you cannot deal with. You must make peace with it. And they'll invade you and all these sorts of different things. And so like the term singularity itself is also kind of like hard to work with because people think it means different things depending on who
Yeah,
you
9
are.
billion definite. It's the same thing with AGI, right? Like, oh, like have we achieved AGI? And it's like there's some person who says we had AGI when the TI-89 was invented, and there's some people who say that AGI will only be achieved when it's able to do like nuclear fusion on your silicon, like on your phone. Like it's able to reproduce through its own like CPU processes a new sun. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. When it starts discovering like new laws of physics or something, then I'll be like, okay, holy shit, that's getting a little weird. Until that's probably my criteria. It's just arbitrary vibes based, but that's mine.
I
Do you
don't think
think
that's
that it's going
arbitrary, man.
to
That seems pretty reasonable.
Okay.
Do you
No?
think
Yeah.
that it's going to do the thing that everyone in crypto is worried about, where they're like, like this model is good enough that all of your funds are fucked forever and you can never use like DeFi lending protocols again?
Oh, I have a post on this actually. It's called "Crypto Entering the Space Age." So, how do I shorten this quickly? So, okay, one way to think about this is that so actually NATO had a conference way back. I don't remember the exact time. It was the 80s, and it was titled the Software Crisis. And basically, software was being built in a way where people just didn't understand completely how to like bulletproof them, which is why like finding bugs in the system and fixing them became so commonplace that it's just completely ingrained. Like if you write code, there's going to be bugs, and so that's already highly expected. But consider something like a pacemaker or like a spaceship, right? Where you actually cannot have a bug or somebody's dying, right? And so that's where formal verification started taking off. You can actually mathematically prove this is so sound that there will not be bugs, right? But that process is extremely cumbersome, and so it takes a lot of resources. So it's only reserved for super serious shit. And so what happened is all these apps that you use kind of the sloppy software standards. Like if something on Facebook goes down, like okay, what happens if there's a bug? You just fucking release an upgrade and then you get people to update their apps. That's it. Nobody's dead. Nobody lost $1 billion. Now, the problem with crypto is that it's been built with the considerations of like a Facebook rather than like a spaceship or a pacemaker, right? Which is to say, it has a lot of sloppy standards and like bugs are expected and whatnot. And so we thought this was okay because we were just trying to find PMF for the industry. But as you get trillions of dollars on chain, you
Yeah.
cannot afford the same standards there, right? Like you actually cannot afford a bug. It's kind of like a spaceship in that once it's out there, you can't bring it back, right? That money is now gone forever if somebody exploits it, right? And like people got around this because they had admin keys and multi-sigs and rolling chains back and forking all those shits. But there comes a time where you actually just can't do that. And so that's why formal verification is so important, right? So if you can mathematically prove that certain aspects of the smart contract hold, you can harden it to a level where like it actually can support finance without you needing to worry too much about it. So there are formally verified DeFi protocols. There are also formally verified chains like Zcash. And then like if you're just holding Sol on the native chain and staking, you don't need to worry too much because like assuming there's like a 0 day on Sol somehow, the validator, the social layer kind of protects you there. But the risk is in those kind of connective tissue, so to speak. Like bridges, it's not an accident and bridges get fucking hacked literally all the time.
Yeah.
Or like random ass DeFi protocols, right? So you need to really do your homework and understand that, have certainty that the developers have used like formal verification processes, and you need to actually do your diligence properly on these things. So I don't think it'll be the case that you just can't use DeFi because everything's unsafe. I do think you need to be at least 10 times more selective than before, in terms of your diligence and your caution levels.
So how difficult is it to actually harden a DeFi protocol to like this is mathematically impenetrable level, given the models that we have now?
So like Camino, for
That
example,
was a
Solana,
dumb broad question. Let's say a random lending protocol that does not rehypothecate across 360 billion different pools. Like it's like one where it has. Let's assume there's actually centralized management for this. So you deposit into one known pool, and then they do things in trad markets with that cash. I assume
yeah.
it's
So
like that's
lending,
one transaction, right?
yeah, I mean, lending protocols are like probably the hardest ones just because there's so many factors, like in terms of Oracle and prices and liquidation engine and, the guarantees that the blockchain itself that they built on top of gives you, whether there's a multi-sig that governs the protocol or whether, there's a DAO that can be governance attacks, and like lending protocols get really tough in my view. And so you're, I think, better off just with those focusing on like whatever is Lindy, like in terms of like this has been open source for like 10 years. It's secured like $1 trillion already. And so I'll kind of just use it as a loose proxy and then maybe do my own diligence. Anything that's new, I would be super, super cautious about. But so anyway, you can like, if just for example, for just like the escrow part of a contract where you're like, if I deposit such and such, this gets locked, and then you mint something else against it, you can formally verify that software piece of function, right? It's like a legal contract in TradFi. Here, it's a piece of code that you can harden to the level of like perfect guarantees, basically. But then you got to look at the system in isolation, right? Even if you do that, well, can somebody list a new asset on that lending protocol, manipulate its price, and then use that to withdraw other assets as collateral or something like this, right? So with lending protocols, I would just forget all that because unless you're technical, it's going to get, or just like a very involved person, it's just way too much. You basically just want to look at Lindy. Some of them actually are starting to have insurance and like different
Yeah.
types of guarantees. So like that's probably as good as you can
That
get.
seems like the way to go
today. Yeah. So like Helius Privacy, for example, will have insurance fund. So because I don't want people to like feel that they're completely walking in naked when they're depositing their funds into this thing.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. It's a situation where, and for those of you who are still listening to this and maybe don't understand or care that much about crypto in general, the reason this matters more in crypto is because unlike, like if you have your grandma get scammed in a traditional banking transaction where she sends like $10 million to some Nigerian scammer, you can typically just call up the bank and say like, hey, like my grandma got scammed. Can you press the big red undo button? And they can be like, yeah, sure, man. That just doesn't work in crypto, really. Like you send the transaction and it is final. If it is on like a layer 2 or something like that, you can basically say like, yeah, I'm able to undo it, but now you run into the thing of everybody thinks that your chain is illegitimate because they're looking at this and saying like, wait, you can just like unfucking do anything you want. I'm not gonna use this shit anymore, man. Like, why would I use the thing that has a big red undo button on it? So, most of the big chains like Ethereum, there was an Ethereum hack years and years ago, but now if somebody were to roll back like a large transaction on Ethereum, everyone would freak out. It would be very significantly damaging to the reputation of the chain. So,
It just
having
wouldn't happen anyway. Like, because you need to coordinate across all sorts of different nodes and validators, like hundreds of them, and they would all need to agree basically. And so that wouldn't happen. But with like an L2, for example, this kind of happened with like a North Korea hack.
This was Blast, right?
This no, I forget the name, but this is like 6-7 months ago at this point.
Oh,
Where
I was thinking back in like 2023.
I mean, yeah, there's been no shortage of these. But like, you're also now opening yourself up to legal liability, because if you've demonstrated you can do that, but then you don't do that for like an actual crime or something, well then have fun going to jail, because you have all the characteristics of a TradFi without any of the regulatory burden, and it just doesn't fly for too long.
Yeah, I was wondering. So we had the whole Solana cycle here where everybody launched like 10 trillion meme coins on this thing because Pump Fund basically, it used to be very, very difficult to actually launch a blockchain contract on Ethereum because you had to know how to code yourself. You had to have the funds to actually deploy the thing, and it would cost like several $1,000s to get this thing out there. And especially for complex contracts, this was pretty confusing for people. Pump Fund comes out, and they basically made like a wacky user interface where any random grandma can click like their one button, and now they can launch a coin. And the result is that the barrier to entry to launching any cryptocurrency project basically went to 0. And I feel like this actually has given us a lot of insight into how AI is going to play with the world at this point. Like I've watched Silicon Valley and what's been going on there with a lot of the startups and a lot of the GPT wrappers, as AI has allowed you to basically launch the B2B SaaS company with the click of a button at this point. And you can basically predict all of the incentive alignment that has come out of that, right? Like the level of, it's like, okay, you lower the barrier to entry and you get a lot more scammers, right? And then how does everyone socially organize against the scammers once they realize that this is happening and they have to sort of like harden their community because they're being parasitized? And I think a lot of the same things are now starting to happen generally in like the tech sphere broadly, as happened in crypto when Pump Fund sort of disrupted everything by making it easy for everyone to scam. I don't know what you think about that.
I mean, I think it's just like Pareto, which is to say like 99% of everything is kind of just shit all the time. And then it requires like the 1% of like somebody with like an interesting insight, or like just somebody who's just autistic as shit, who just actually makes it work against stasis. Same thing with tokens.
Dude, inertia is very strong. Like, dude, there's businesses that still pay by check. Like,
and use facts. So
yeah, there's people that use
exactly.
facts. There's people who use the postage system to send money still. Like,
yeah.
It's
like,
very strange sometimes because, like, people like us, we use Fable and we're using Mitos and whatnot, and so we kind of use the things that are out there. I don't think the limiting factor for most things is new technology. The limiting factor for most things is how do you make the economics work such that the go-to-market makes sense on this. Right? And so new technology is great because it pushes the frontiers. Stuff like ZK proofs is great because it pushes the frontiers. But for example, Zcash, right? Like Mert, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Zcash was the first implementation of zero knowledge proofs. But it was like the one that kind of was the most scalable, right?
Well, okay, so that's a bad example because it actually was. But
it was the very first one? Really?
Yeah, you don't understand how epic
system.
Zcash is, Saila. Like, you still have yet to fully accept.
I thought there was some stuff that like maybe wasn't released super publicly that was done prior, but maybe I'm wrong.
Zero knowledge as a concept existed, but ZK-SNARKs this is the first ever production system. But like to your point, for the first like 8 years, that made no difference at all, right? Like that tech existed and it was obviously better, but it didn't do anything because that wasn't like the obvious limiting factor. Like I love it when people are like, oh, AI is going to like, do such and such to like businesses and stuff. And it's like, dude, writing software is nowhere near the hardest part of building a business. It's like, it's not even the top five,
Yeah.
I don't think, in terms of like the hardest things a business must do. Like hiring and actually finding an insight that others have overlooked, go to market, like you said, scale, economics of the business,
Dude, hiring
managing
is
like
so hard.
co-founder drama.
Yeah. I wish someone would make a better LinkedIn, man. A better
Dude, that
LinkedIn
thing
would
is so
kill.
fucked.
LinkedIn
That is the
sucks
worst thing on
so
earth.
bad, dude.
Yeah,
So
it
bad.
is. I cannot
Someone needs
believe it
to
actually
do
makes
the
money.
thing everyone wants to do for dating apps, and then no one does because you can't actually make money doing it. Where it's like you can only talk to one person at the same time. Someone should do that, but for like applications where it's like, hey, on this app you can only apply to like 5 companies a week or something.
Oh, that could be interesting. Yeah, it's completely unusable. That's actually the first thing I did with AI, where I was like, just monitor my LinkedIn because
The real
yeah,
problem
go
is
ahead.
that like there is a huge adverse selection problem, right? Where like if you're good, you'll just back channel most of the time, almost always. If you're really great, either on the hiring
Yeah.
or on the being hired side, you will be back channeled one way or the other. Um, but I mean, we could definitely imagine like a better world, right? Like we've spoken to some people who are applying to like hundreds and hundreds of jobs, like Roy who's applying like 1,000 jobs a day, and like great for him, and it is like incredibly funny, and like you should take advantage of the system you're in, but like we can imagine a better system, right? A lot of that is
Well, it's
also just
also
like I
ridiculous
guess
because you
the
can slop cannon all of your competitors with this too. Like if I'm like, yo, Mert, I fucking hate you, dude. Like, fuck Helius. And I see your application's submission channel on your website, and I'm like, okay, Fable, like just hit him with fucking 5,000 apps a day.
dude.
The requirement I have for like most of these roles is you need to find an intro to me on Signal, which is like very specific. And that's like the first part of the job application because not many people have my Signal. But for example, if it's lead BD, then one of the core properties of that job is having a fucking network. And so you need to find somebody who knows me enough that they know me on Signal. And only then will I actually talk to you about this job. Right. So like
Yeah.
that's like one filtering mechanism. And there's others.
Well, BD is one of those things. Lucas, we talked about this way back when. This was like a long time ago. I think before we even met in person ever, before Lisbon, where you were like, dude, I like just accepted this job offer. And I think I fumbled so hard because like the first offer was really good, and so I just said yes. It was like I obviously should not have just said yes. Like you always kind of want like your BD hires to like I think if a BD hire doesn't ask you for like an extra like 5% on top or something, it's just like a huge fumble, like massive immediate fumble. Like you cannot fuck that up. I think actually dates or
Yeah, they all
something. But like
negotiate.
there was a time when
Yeah.
like it was not common to negotiate. There was that one essay. I think it's by Patrick McKenzie, um, who is this like weird guy who works for Stripe, moved to Japan, worked at a bunch of businesses, super knowledgeable guy on payments, used to hate crypto, but like refused to engage with anyone moderately intelligent in crypto. But that's neither here nor there. But he
Yeah, no.
wrote this. I think he's the one, right, who wrote like the seminal blog post on negotiating when you get an offer. And he's like, I think one of the things he says is like, you can almost always push 5% because 5% is like a number where like if they say no, it's not like embarrassing for you to accept the job anyways, and like 5% extra usually doesn't make that much
I
of a
do
difference
think
to a
there is a
company.
rare edge case where if somebody gives you an offer that is so egregiously generous and it's clear like they just like you, and then you push on
Yes.
top of this, you do look like kind of clip this out, cut this out. You look like a huge like it's just
No,
you
this is a
really
thing that happens. The big thing here is like if someone's really making you a sweetheart offer, you have to be able to discern when someone is like dropping their guard and being like, "Hey, I'm extending my hand out to you." Because if you fuck with them when they do that, it's like you have fucked over this entire relationship, which could have been a positive relationship for like the next 10 years, right? And this is like another big thing I've always learned is like don't really think about where people, what company people are at today, and like Just always do the really small stuff that takes like 2 minutes of your time. Um, and it's not because it'll pay off, because most of the time it won't pay off. But like the one out of every 20 people that it pays off with will pay back everyone else. It's like a venture portfolio of like small favors, man. I cannot tell you, like there are small favors I've done for people and that people have done for me that have like paid off 100 times over, just 1,000 times over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say the thing that the audience wants from Mert is the guide to dating a Slavic woman, right? I don't know if you can do this without
Oh
getting killed by
God.
the Slavic woman, right? It's like that might be step one.
Well,
Is
he
like
can't,
She's
he
in the
can't
room as
reveal the
well.
guide
tricks
on dating
because
her.
if he reveals the tricks, she'll listen to this and she'll learn all the tricks he's using, right? It's like,
She's looking at me right now. Actually, she's
oh
in the room.
no.
Oh God.
I don't know. I mean, do you have specific questions on that? I'm happy to try.
I was gonna say where do you find them, but that's obviously, you know, it's like right behind you is the answer. You know, that's
Yeah, right behind you. The real honest
feel like
answer
the
about
answer-
Slavic women, when you start doing like Slavic women are generational. People always talk about like the Asian women in the Bay as being like the top tier sniffer outers of like this guy is gonna make it in the next 2 or 3 years. Dude, I'm like way more bullish Slavic women as like as this feature of like a Slavic woman will catch you like 1 year before you make it. Like they'll really come in at the last minute possible. You know what I mean?
I will
They
say
are like
it's
very good at this.
Okay, so here's maybe one learning.
I think it's correlation versus causation is kind of difficult on this one because it's more like a Slavic woman will just be like, they will just like pressure test, bully you until you succeed, basically. It'll kind of be like if you have like a bad day at work, you're like, oh, I don't know if I did that right. They'll be like, oh, you did it correct. You will do it better next time. And they'll just keep going after until it works. And it's more like a hard ass like football coach, so to speak,
so funny.
as opposed to like a genuine internal compass. But that's just my experience.
Yeah.
I was wondering about this one too, like how much like how direct does the guidance get? Because I know a lot of Asian women who will like do research to try and guide their husband's career trajectory towards things, and they will start like aggressively shilling him like, oh, like you should go into this, or oh, you should talk to my friend's dad about this. He works in this, which I think this field is really like. And I haven't so much heard that from Slavic women, but I also don't know a bunch of people who date them. So
I would say, again, sample size very small here.
no,
in
this is the
terms
thing.
of-
I want to make it clear. We're extrapolating everything about like your one relationship
Yeah.
to every Russian woman in the world, right? Like this applies
This is
to
the
all-
last word on dating Slavic women, okay? You're getting the last word on it, okay? It's the definitive truth.
I mean, like
don't
they
hedge.
can help if you ask for it, but like it's much more traditional in that it's very like traditional roles in terms of like they will just let the guy do the thing that the guy wants to do in terms of like career. Like they make the decision. The guy does everything that a guy is expected to do that you would expect. One funny thing about it, for example, in Russia, is like in America, you have like all these 24/7 corner stores like 7-Eleven and like whatever place you just get chips or cigarettes or whatever the fuck. In Russia, I actually haven't seen those, but what they do have is an insane amount, and I mean an insane amount, of 24/7 flower shops because it is just
You
absolutely
gotta
expected at
apologize.
all times.
You gotta quickly apologize to her. You need like SEAL Team
We're
6
not
of like flower apologies.
Yeah.
Do they
Pretty
deliver?
much.
It's like I need
Oh, yeah.
apology flowers delivered 5 minutes from now. And they just
Well,
like
no.
a group of Slavic guys like bust down your doors wearing Adidas tracksuits with the flowers.
I'm very interested now in the flower meta because I've noticed this is actually
Yeah, the
different in
flower
different
meta
countries,
is
right? Like
they are like the big posters
What's
of
the
flowers
flower
on
meta?
Instagram stories, right?
Well, I was just gonna say, like in America, it's this big arrangement, but like every country or I guess locality has their own sort of culture around like the role of flowers in relationships, and they have different flowers that they select typically, also just like regionally, and then they'll also have, you know, like some countries just don't like arrangements that much. There are some countries where it's like, You put the one type of fucking flower in the vase. You don't mix roses with peonies. That's like horse shit.
I think
That's some
one
autistic
cultural
level
thing.
of
I think one cultural
Jesus.
thing that's kind of interesting is I think in the U.S. it's like it's very strange to show up with like a massive bouquet of flowers. I don't know if this is like, I mean, I don't have that much connection to like Slavic culture, so maybe I'm just like seeing like stuff on like
It's not
Twitter
strange
or
at all in
whatever.
Slavic culture. It's
Yeah,
pretty
I feel like it's
expected,
not strange.
actually.
I feel like in the U.S. it's like a big deal, and it's like kind of almost like too much, like too intense a little if you like show up with a big bouquet of flowers. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of like strange. It's like what's going on? Like it
That threw
feels like
me
it
off,
sets up a
actually.
weird dynamic, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because I grew up in Canada, like the West. I don't know if you can consider Canada the West anymore, to be honest. But anyway, um,
Holy
uh,
shit.
in yeah, it's the complete opposite. Like you can, and by the way, like there's all sorts of like real, like weird stuff, at least to me, where it was like, okay, if you get 50 flowers, that's actually bad because you can only get an odd number of flowers, so you have to get 51. So like if you go
Huh.
to like an actual Russian flower shop, they only give them in odd numbers. And it can't be red roses because red roses mean funeral or like somebody died, so it has to be like a certain color. But like depending on like obviously the type of person you're dating, 51, like let's say something like I don't know, the size of my torso would probably be considered somewhat excessive in the West. Not even close in Moscow, for
Yeah, not
example.
even close in
Um,
Slavic countries, right? In the West, if you buy that many flowers, it's like what is like did you do something evil? Like what is like did you fuck
yeah, like
something
oh,
up
he's
really
coming on
bad?
too strong, or like oh, this guy's obsessed with me or something. And it's the opposite in the other part of the world, which is like oh, this person doesn't. He's not a
I think
gentleman.
there's
Doesn't
like
actually
this weird
care.
you have to be more indirect in the West, and I think almost it's almost like in the entire rest of the world you can be more direct, but like in the West there's this weird like assertive mating thing where like if you're too into her, even if she really likes you, if you do too many things that are too direct, like girls start thinking like, oh, he's so into me, like maybe I've really miscalculated like the market value here and I'm
Our
getting like a
value,
horrible
yeah. Like if
deal.
he's this into
Yeah,
me, I must be higher on
yeah,
the
like
chart. That
if
yeah.
he's going after me this hard and he got me this many flowers, like is maybe this is like a horrible, maybe I'm like really fire sailing myself here and haven't realized. Whereas in the rest of the world, or like even things like going up to a girl and being like, "Hey, can I take you out?" Like that's kind of weird in the West. Like there used to be like this whole series of like I remember in like middle school and high school growing up. Now I kind of just don't give a shit anymore. But like there was this weird like convoluted way you would like ask someone on a date, but like you would never ever call it a date because it was like really bad to call it a date. Do you remember this, or am
Yeah,
I
yeah,
fucking insane? Like
yeah,
you
yeah.
No,
No,
this
you
is
I
did
do
like
real.
this
remember.
And
weird
it's
thing where
still
like this is
it
still a
still
You
thing,
have to
totally
just
goes
be
right?
on.
super
I mean, okay.
nonchalant.
Yes, no, I mean our podcast is called Plausibly Deniable, and this is like the entire meta of America, right? Everything in
Yes.
America when dealing with women, it's like even when you are going on your seventh date, there must be this like it must be plausibly deniable that you like her, right? Like there could be a
Yes.
chance that this all has happened as
Oh,
like a coincidence somehow.
one other thing I'll say is like, okay, so like along those lines, from what I remember, in the West, what you have to do is basically you have to formally ask them, like, hey, do you want to be exclusive, right? Like if you're actually like dating. Um, they do not have this as far and I'm sure like some subgroups within Russia or Slavic women have this, but they don't have this in Russia. So like if you just take the person on a date or if you just kiss, you're now dating, right? Like there is
Mm.
no it is now that it is like very traditional. There's this meme of like Russian women just being like super traditional, like values, orthodox, whatever, and it's pretty correct, I would say.
I think the other
So
thing that arises out of that is that like in the rest of the world, like boyfriend is not like as significant of a category because dating in and of itself is a bigger deal. Whereas in the US, like boyfriend is a big deal because boyfriend a lot of times denotes like, oh, we're not just seeing each other, we're like exclusive and like people know that we're seeing each other. It's not like some weird secret. Whereas like in the US, like dating quote unquote is like a very big deal versus like oh this is my boyfriend or my girlfriend because it denotes exclusivity. Like in the rest of the world, like I'm going out with a girl basically means like it's almost like this is your girlfriend.
The
Like,
idea
it
also
is
of
very, very, very
situationships
close.
is completely obliterated by the Russian strategy here. Like you can have no situationship because now you're just dating 11 people, right? Now you're just like it's cheating. You
Yeah.
get thrown out of the village, presumably. I don't know. A lot of the stuff
Yeah.
that I've seen Mert comment on, it was when he was living in Dubai, and every now and then it's like some big piece of American discourse would go like hyper mega viral, and Mert would look at it, and like most of the time he would take like most of the time he would agree with the American right, and then on a lot of the dating stuff that involved any sort of like whenever traditionalism was at question, he would look at it and go like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Like obviously the guy is supposed to like pay for the date or something. uh and then there would be some like 20-year-old Zoomer in your replies trying to explain to you that it's like, no, like you don't understand how destroyed it is, right? Like actually we've destroyed every reason why the guy would pay for the date. And also they don't have money to pay for the date anyway. And also nobody should be dating in the first place because our country has destroyed the concept of marriage and it's now meaningless. And Mert's like looking at it and he's like, is this real or is this like a hallucinated? And the guy has like a baby Pepe the Frog avatar. And like I can almost imagine you reading this reply thinking like, I'm just gonna table this one, man. Like I'll think about it later.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I'm also Turkish, right? So I'm kind of like more Eastern, I guess. But like, there's all sorts of like these different philosophies on dating and whatnot these days, and like everybody's like trying to do all these different things. And I made a post that went relatively viral about like, really, I feel like all you need to do is like gentleman max, and like people have like an ego with this thing where they're like, oh, but like this person might be like a whore or something. And it's like, okay, well then you selected wrong to begin with, obviously, right? Or like maybe the thing that you're wanting isn't a relationship regardless. And that's fine, whatever. But like just super simple. Like if you just, and by the way, here's another like funny thing. Like my girlfriend she'll like walk up to a door and she'll just stand by it. And like the first like first like 2 times I saw this, I was not super used to it. So I was like, what is happening here? Like, are we just not going yet? And I was like, oh wait, never mind. I'm supposed to get the door. And it's like, with everything. Like if you're just gentle, and like obviously you have to like, you have to get up and then go to the washroom and like put the chair in when you go to the restaurant and all this stuff. Just like super like 60s, like if you just like watched Mad Men, like with Don Draper, just like basically everything they would do. That's basically it.
Huh. This is dating alpha that we have basically never gotten on here. This is dating alpha that may actually be so like I think our average viewers like this is literally not possible for my brain to implement, right? It's like they're already having trouble walking on like the street side of the sidewalk. Like that one's already confusing. The idea now of getting up to grab their chair when they go to the washroom, like this is
So
also
funny.
sometimes
Yeah, I mean it's
every
like
now
super small. Yeah, go ahead.
when you do the street side like walking thing now with a lot of girls, because like I've done this and I did this there was a girl in New York that I was seeing for a bit, and then this another girl also from London did this, where I would do that, and then they would say, "Are you trying to do that weird thing where you walk on the street side to like protect me or something?" I heard that guys from the Midwest do that a lot, and I was like, "Huh, okay, so noted." This
That's
does not
so
appear to be
funny.
buying me points.
No, I mean you got to just kind of giga chat that and just be like, yes, that is correct. You need to
Yeah,
be
I
protected.
would agree with
like,
Giga
you're the
chatting
woman.
that one.
Like,
I
and
definitely
by
did
the way,
not giga
where
chat
I'm
it.
from, you kind of just have to do that because, like, if you're from an unsafe part of the world, one thing that's very common is somebody from the road will just, on like whatever moped or some shit, will just grab the bag because it's the girls on the street side, right? And so like some parts of the world you actually have to do that. Maybe
Huh.
maybe not in New York.
Yeah, it's another one of those things where we've evolved away from the reason why we have the protective measure, and now we're all like, why do we don't even need to do this? And then it's like you go to Brussels, for example, and then
God, that
suddenly
place.
everything is instantly robbed. Yeah. I lost my like legendary MacBook in Brussels. I'm extremely bitter about the place. We parked I put my bag in my friend's car and they left it there for like 8 hours and it got ripped out of the trunk. And that was like my MacBook.
Yeah,
that I had
Brussels is
basically
super
made.
bad. It's actually a terrible country. Like I went there for ECC a few years ago, and like my friends who lived in Brussels, this one guy messaged me. He's like, "Dude, don't leave your bag like it was like right by the entrance of the bar. It's like, don't ever do that. I can see some people eyeing it, and I was like, where the fuck am I right now? This is crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be the capital of EU democracy, right? But it's just really the capital of crime.
Same.
Why
Anyway,
do they have conferences in these places, man? Like, why do
I don't know.
cryptocurrency conventions be like, what we should do? We should take all of the least socially aware men in the industry who have known millions of dollars of private wealth potentially on their phones, and then we're going to send them to the third world with a bunch of people who have no problem killing them for $7.
Yeah.
No, it's just
it
like
is.
the world is not caught up to like Europe is the third world, bro. It's like
Yeah. Oh, I just remembered one other random fucking Russian versus American woman difference, which is like the level of preparedness for completely trivial activities is like super striking. So, for example, um, I was shooting I was about to shoot a podcast in like where my girlfriend lives, and like I don't have any of the fucking apps. I don't know how anything works back in the day, and I was like, you need to like come with me on the Uber so that I go to the right place, whatever. She's like, oh, okay. Then I have to get up like early, like 2 hours, or I'm like, so what time do you have to get up? Because the podcast is at like 12 or something. She's like, oh, okay. Well, I have to get up at least 10 then. And I was like, what do you mean you have to get up at 10? I'm getting up at like 11:45. And she's like, no, I gotta do my hair, my makeup, and I gotta pick out the outfit, and I gotta iron it and all this stuff. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, you just come on the Uber. She's like, I never go anywhere unprepared. And like you go to like Moscow, for example, and all the women just, no matter what they're doing, if it's just walking a dog, just completely dressed up, like top to bottom. Versus in America, like the girls will just go to school in pajamas. And so that's like a very striking difference that I noticed.
I think there's a level of like non-irony where like almost like everything in the West is like a very irony poisoned, and that's why like you can't ask out a girl directly. You get like none of these things you can just like do the thing, right? You have to like obfuscate the fact that you're doing the thing because apparently it's like embarrassing if you do the thing directly, which is like kind of retarded, but that's like the meta for whatever reason has become that.
Well, and there is some guy in the audience, to be clear, who's saying, well, you're just a pussy. Like, you can just do the thing. And it's like, you can just do the thing. Like, I often just do the thing. However, it very frequently leads to a sort of bizarre, manic, like 3-month thing that explodes because you weren't tactful, right? Like, there is a certain tact that is required and expected when dealing with people in the US now, and it is considered like graceless if you just say the thing directly in a very explicit way a lot of times. Like,
Dude, are you hitting up any conferences or have people like just totally given up on the conference as a concept even?
They have been getting pretty shit over time. I don't even know if I'm going to go to the Solana Breakpoint one because it's in London and I don't want to get macheted.
Dude, it just does feel like the level of like Europe is the third world has accelerated in an insane way.
it's getting really bad, right? Like, you now actually have to factor that in, right? You're like, is the value that I'm getting out of this thing worth the disruption and genuine risk to my life? Whereas before it was like, yeah, I'm just going to go hang out with my friends and people in the industry.
Yeah, so that's why I only go to like, I'm going to go to Token in Singapore because Singapore is actually a civilization. It's like a normal place. And then obviously Dubai, generally pretty safe. I mean, really as safe as you can get. I don't know about any of the others. I'm going to go to Token in Singapore. But I got invited to like a Rio one and I was like, absolutely no chance. There's no way I'm going to Brazil. I was like, no chance.
I just do wonder how they come up with these venues, I guess. Like, honestly, it's kind of like, and you can't do the US for everyone because there's a lot of people that just won't go to the US too. But
well, also
I guess
like visas are becoming a little bit harder and
yeah, okay, I'm answering my own question actually. It's like there's only Singapore and Dubai as like safe places over outside America. And in America it's like you can do whatever, I guess, but
anyway, I got to go.
Great talking to the guy, great seeing him again. Always a great podcast guest. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Plausibly Deniable.
yes.
Sponsored
You're welcome
by
for tuning
our
into.
sponsors.
Fuck that, dude. You're welcome for tuning into another episode of Pause Without.
It is good because when you get the guys who listened all the way through to the end, it's like they've either like completely tapped out and their browser's just running on a phone like 30 feet away from them, and
They
it's like
hate
off in
you
the
or
kitchen,
they
they're not
love
even
you,
listening.
man. But like whichever one it is,
exactly.
nothing you do could ever make them change their opinion.
Change their opinion, really. Yeah.
Yes. You
Like, they're
could
locked
never,
in. They're
ever
super
change
locked
their
in.
opinion.